To show you how easy it is to file a claim with Geico, we hired a soap opera star.
Gracious me, my car has storm damage and I've had to file a claim. Could it possibly get worse? Will my claims team leave me for someone else? Someone less intense?
No. Actually, when you file a claim with Geico, you get your own dedicated claims team who promises to stay with you throughout the process.
Oh, I've never known such loyalty. I can't wait for the second season.
Geico. Great service without all the drama.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Christopher Media. Let's make some noise. From Asthma Core Studios near Detroit, Michigan. It's unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
193. I'm Chris.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Rich. And at least we're not Donald Trump Jr. Wow. Every week, it's like when we sign off, it's like, what's going to happen in the next 7 days? And, you know, you got to hand it to the Trump administration. They don't fail to disappoint in this area. I mean, if I'm a comedy writer for the last 6 months, oh my God.
Right. Yeah, you know, Trump Jr. has been getting a lot of slack this week for being stupid, which I'm not saying he's smart, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with the concept that he's stupid for releasing the email.
I think he's smarter than everybody's giving him credit for.
I definitely think that.
If you've read any articles kind of outlining what he's done, like, the legal experts are all pretty much coming back on the middle on this one. Like, it could go either way. It depends on what your definition of what's been the big buzzword this week of
collusion,
of what's of value.
Of what's of value? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, yeah. Well, because it was promised that information that would be of value to Trump's campaign against Clinton.
Because, they started going down the campaign finance road, and they're like, you didn't take any money, but we got to get into the definition of what value to the campaign is, and he didn't get anything, so, like...
Right. Oh, but I guess what I was referring to directly, though, is the fact that he released the email, and a lot of people have been like, well, this is just... He's just stupid. Why would he put this out here? Makes it look like they're colluding.
Yeah, people act like it's a smoking gun. I don't think it's I think it's the smoking gun they need.
Well, I don't think there is going to be a smoking gun. There's going to be a lot of little wisps of smoke.
I mean, keep in mind, Donald Trump's been in big business for 3-4 decades. It's probably the first time he's pulled some gangster shit and covered his tracks. Let's be honest.
Well, I think that he had to release the email because probably the New York Times already had it.
Failing New York Times?
The email was going to get out there anyway.
So
and he was probably advised by his lawyer that, hey, you better get this out here now because it's getting out there, and at least this way you can control the way it gets out. But meanwhile, the defense for Trump Jr. is one of, he's just a boy. He doesn't know any better. It was just a mistake. He got all wrapped up in this.
He's just an innocent 35-year-old boy. He has no idea what he's doing.
No, straight up, people are referring to him as a boy. I mean,
just because your suffix is junior, it doesn't make you a boy.
Right. He's actually as old as Macron is, the French president that Trump went to visit this week.
This is another thing, again, where the idiocy from both sides has just been astounding.
Well, a lot of people are excited. A lot of people that want to see Trump out of office are, like I said, I wouldn't call this a smoking gun either.
What's to get excited about? The Attorney General's been caught perjuring himself, and nothing's changed. I mean, what's it going to take at this point?
Time. That's what. Look, you can't take each one of these events separately. This email isn't going to get anybody out of office, put anyone in jail. or have any direct consequences. The fact that Trump hasn't released his taxes isn't going to mean ultimately nothing on its own. The calls to revoke security clearances for Kushner and Sessions because they lied on their forms, those probably aren't going to be successful, and the lies aren't going to have any direct consequences for either one of these. As a whole, as part of the investigation, these are all important elements. So, I mean, I'm kind of excited by the reveal of this meeting, because not because of the fact that it's like a documented piece of evidence that we know that he met with a Russian, right?
Yeah.
It's the response to it. It's this idea that nobody had anything to do with the Russians before. Now the story comes out that we had a meeting with somebody who promised to have some dirt on Clinton, and they were a Russian, and all of a sudden the story changes. Well, this is a nothing burger. This is common politics. Everybody does it. Look, somebody calls you, says they got dirt on your opponent in a political race. You're going to take that meeting. You're going to take that call. You're going to find out at least what they have. I mean, that's what some people are saying. There's others, two Republicans actually have finally come to what senses they have left. Lindsey Graham and what's his name that ran with Sarah Palin? How am I forgetting his name?
McCain.
Yeah, McCain. Yeah, McCain. Both of them seem rather concerned about this, and even another what's his nuts that the guy was appointed to head the FBI was asked if he would consider that to be just politics as usual, meeting with some sort of foreign agent in order to get information on your opponent. And he said that he hoped that anybody in that situation would immediately report that meeting to the FBI.
I don't know. I guess the other part of this that kind of just rubs me the wrong way is how politicians are all of a sudden acting like they're getting on Mount Pius on this one. I don't know. To me, it doesn't matter what color tie you're wearing. I don't trust you. And I guess that's just part of, a little bit of my bullshit detectors going off with a lot. I mean, especially McCain, who, because again, it's kind of like when Bill Maher talks shit about Trump. I go, yeah, but you guys got some personal history. McCain with the whole, I like people that don't get captured.
Right.
This could be, a little bit of, yeah, fuck me, fuck you.
It could be, yeah. I mean, an equally cynical view is that they are just seeing the writing on the wall and distancing themselves from Trump just to protect their own ass. This isn't like they suddenly saw the light.
Like all of a sudden this outrage that it's always above board here in Washington, D.C., and this is not how we do things. Really? Because I bet when it's your guy, you're shutting the fuck up and standing behind him. I'm just so cynical about politics anymore, I guess, is where this all leads for me. I don't believe anybody anymore.
Well, look,
either side of anything.
But I think we're having the same conversation that we had last week, though, and that's the worst fallout from a situation like this is that response. That the whole system is corrupt, everybody's fucked up, nobody's right, and you throw your hands up and you give up. And, I'll say it again. That's how these despots get into power. That's part of Trump's master plan. That's what fucking Roger Stone and what's his nuts, the alcoholic Breitbart guy,
Bannon.
Well,
I guess too.
These are the methods
too much credit.
That he was trained. No, I'm giving them credit, and if you don't think those fuckers are smart, then you need to wisen up, because these are the ones that are actually directing all of this. I mean, ultimately,
first one.
Regardless of whether they have any control over him now, now that he is in the White House, these are the people that got him into the White House. And it was through tactics of excessive mudslinging and just a general obfuscation of the whole process, and not only that you can't trust Democrats, but you can't trust the press. So now you can't trust anybody, right? It doesn't. So that's part of the way that Trump gets away with saying whatever he wants, because you can, if you want to support him, you can cherry pick what you think is the truth out of that, and understand that the rest is just dressing, is just politics, quote unquote.
I don't know, man. Like, I've been fatigued. I'm getting real fatigued. I mean, it's my weekly trying to catch up. It's so. I'll be honest, I don't know who to trust anymore with anything
You trust,
regarding any of this. I just try to take what I think are facts out of what I read. Like, I don't know.
I don't know what to tell you other than I mean, certainly you have to trust your own judgment. And in some ways, if you're going to read any kind of news, you have to have some sort of trust. And multiple sources and understanding where those sources are coming from. It's kind of like we all have to be somewhat of an investigative reporter now. That's what a reporter has to do. They have to get multiple sources that they can corroborate information from, and have to be able to know a little bit of the background and character of those sources to know that they are trustworthy, or at least the information that's being provided is trustworthy. So that's what we have to do. We have to read multiple sources, understand if we're reading a left bent or a right bent, and use our own judgment to compile that. I mean,
what's bothering me, though, is the last 2 weeks, and I guess it bothers me that I've been having this thought. The last 2 weeks, it's really started to rattling around on my head, like, are we chasing our tail on this Russia thing? Like, cause I guess it just stems from, it seems like everything that comes out is supposed to be the smoking gun, and it never is.
Well, okay, stop believing that. If anybody tells you that this one,
should I stop reading the news? Because that's what I'm saying is the news is leading you to believe, like, oh, this is it, we got them now. And then we never do. Like,
well, look, the answer to too much information is not no information. There has to be a stasis somewhere in there. You have to have a midpoint somewhere.
You know, Chris, at least you're fatigued. I guess I don't have as big of a vocabulary as I thought I did. I don't have a word for what I am.
There are people in my feed where I want to be like, dude, are you going to be okay? We're only like 6 months in.
I'm flabbergasted at this point, because this is, I'm watching people and talking to people who just don't give a shit. I mean, you could have video, a signed confession, all the proof you'd need. It's a fucking slam dunk in a court of law, and they don't give a shit. You know, I'm listening to a podcast earlier today, like literally 2 hours ago, and the subject comes up about, do you have a problem with Trump going to Russia, of all countries, and going, hey, we need to dig up, these emails. Could you put your people on it for me? And I'm going, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. We got some people that can do that. And and 2 of the 3 people having the conversation were like, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. That's the level we're at. It's their guy. They don't care. And if you're a Trump supporter, this looks like the witch hunt that every Obama supporter said was going on for the 8 years he was in office. Now, that doesn't mean it is, but perception is reality. We've had this conversation before. To these people, at least. The level of people just going, I don't care. I mean, Kid Rock announces he's running for Senate. My aunt, super uber Christian woman, comes out and supports him. Are you fucking kidding me? You're telling me the guy that wrote these lyrics in 1992, I'm the nigga that your bitch would die for, the whore showed up at my front door, so I fucked her in the ass and I threw her out the back door, is is who Jesus would want as a senator for the state of Michigan. But she don't care.
Because he's a Republican.
Because it's her fucking team. This is how stupid we've gotten. This is why I said, look, he's guilty. He's guilty. There's too much fucking smoke to be no fire. But not enough people give a fuck for anything to happen about it. And the Democrats, for all their fucking tilting at windmills about this shit, aren't going to get anything done. And the Republicans, half of them don't want to fucking distance themselves from him because they're afraid, what if he does get another term?
Yeah, if he pulls this off, I'm going to have egg on my face, and he's going to run against me.
Exactly.
Not run against me, but run somebody against me.
And the other half are like, we've been so fucking aimless since Bush 2's second fucking term that I'll just ride anybody's coattails who looks like it's going to take us at least within pissing distance of the promised land. And, Aaron, I get where you're coming from. You got to fucking sift through a lot of garbage to get the fucking info that's legit. But then I also understand where Chris is coming from. At a certain point, does this info mean anything? If it only means something to you, good. You're able to sift through bullshit. You got a good bullshit detector. But the general public just does not seem to give a fuck. The people who are on a witch hunt for his ass care, and the people who are hardcore supporters of his care, and it seems like the rest go, whatever. It's politics as usual. It's just on Front Street this time.
Well, it isn't our responsibility as the general public to investigate the president. Those people who are doing that have already been put in place. So, I mean, I could start to worry if these investigations are actually able to be torn apart by Trump. If he's able to fire Mueller and just kill the momentum on this story enough so that the whole thing just kind of dissolves out of lack of support. I mean, your outrage as an individual is important in so much as it adds to a collective voice that hopefully will be heard by the people who you have to vote for to keep in office. Because that is pressure on these lawmakers. Whether they say it or not, a major factor in all of this is if Trump falls on his face and we go against what the people who put you into office are crying for, then you're definitely not going to see re-election. So, yeah, I mean, look, I was thinking about this week, I was like, everything has frustrated me. Just about every day, there's a new news story that has a frustrating amount of fucked up information in it. And I was thinking, like, oh, yeah, like, my frustration level is really high. I feel like it's, like, at an 8.5. And then I thought, well, how can I even quantify it? Because 6 months ago, I would have thought that my frustration level was at an 8.5. And it turns out that my frustration level, my capacity for this shit, grows.
It's just like your ability to take pain. You don't realize how much pain you can take until you've taken more pain than you've ever took. And you go, okay, this is it. And then even more pain shows up and you go, oh, fuck, I can get through that.
Right.
It's not a pleasurable experience, but it's something you can survive, yes.
Yeah, and everybody's got, to varying degrees of tolerance for this type of stuff. But ultimately, we are adaptable beings. That is how we got where we are now. And how we got the brains that we have now, whether we do something good with them or not. So I don't know. I don't know how to give somebody hope in a situation like this, because you can't promise yourself. Look, this whole thing might turn out to have no sticking power at all, and yeah, there's a possibility that we see Trump not only survive this but get reelected, and that's a scary thought. But I mean,
I guess what's really bothering me too is, like, never in our lifetime I mean, we thought we had seen it. I mean, thought it was at a peak with W, but I've never just seen the media just so viciously go after somebody. It seems like it's just
no. I wish I could say that, but Clinton's second term, Fox was fucking. They were hunting for his head.
Yeah,
it was just because it was coming from Fox. Here's Trump. Okay,
Trump, I guess too. That's one of the four. You got like 3 of the 4 going at, and that's what
we discussed this either last week or the week before. Trump don't want none of MSNBC because that's the fucking lion's den.
Yeah.
All right. But it also, he knows he's not going to fucking change anybody's mind who fucking is a true believer in whatever in a fan of MSNBC. So he goes after CNN, the one news network who at least gives lip service to we try to be as neutral as possible in the eyes of the public, and he goes after them. And then we have historians who have no political agenda, no political bent. You can Google historians on what is the first thing that happens in all totalitarian regimes. And the first thing that happens is the person who starts the regime gets in office
they dismantle
and they tear
the press.
down the press.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is what he's doing. And people just don't give a shit. And I can't blame him because every fucking week we get on this show and we start off and it's literally what happened in Trump land this week. And I can't imagine if my job was to do this 5, 6, 7 days a week. Like,
I know, right?
Oh my God, dude.
Your blood pressure.
We might as well just
double your blood pressure medication.
We might as well just start a fucking podcast about what's going on with Trump, and then just make it a daily podcast.
Oh, I mean, people have, yeah.
There actually is. There's a Forbes podcast that just follows
quite
Trump.
A few. Yeah, there's quite a few.
There's
it's called The Week in Trump or something like that. Wait, by the way. There you go. Forgot to do that. Yeah.
But I mean, there's a channel on Sirius on satellite radio that the whole channel's dedicated to what's going on with fucking Trump every single day, 24/7, and it's just like
they didn't do that for Bill. They only had one out of the 4 teams going after Bill.
I gotta wonder how much, what the burnout level is going to be on that over like the span of a year. Like if they're going to have to rotate reporters in and out because it's just going to be people going. Because really, the only people who are going to never tire of this are people who are obsessed with it in one way or the other. And I think we've reached the general public's limit of, I don't give a fuck no more. Stop talking about it. I don't care. Nothing's ever going to fucking change. It's same as it ever was. He's got an R by his name, and I'm a Republican, and that's good enough for me. He's in office. And then there's people on the left who are just like, what are we going to do? If we get him out, then we got President Pence. Is that any better?
Well, but Chris, I think you're making false comparisons, though, because if you want to believe that Trump is worse than a worse president than Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, then I don't think that you can really say that what the press is doing is overreaction or hyperbolic or a witch hunt of some sort. That they're making this personal. I mean, is their reaction to this president more severe than to past presidents? Yes, because this president is more dangerous than any other president that we've had so far. This president not only doesn't even understand the Constitution less than any other previous president, but certainly doesn't adhere to its principles.
I don't even think it's a matter of the principles and he's dismissing them or he's cherry picking them. I just don't think he cares.
Right.
It's beneath him. It is, in his mind, it is beneath him. We are all his subjects.
Look, he got to the top by breaking the rules. And the Constitution, that's just more rules that need to be broken so he can show everybody how to really do shit, because he's the smartest man in the room.
Well, that's the thing is, Aaron,
according to him.
But it's sentences like that right there. Like, you know that there's like stopgaps in place, like things like the judicial branch to keep it in check. Like, I guess that's where I take when I hear things like that. Like, he's not going to like wipe the ass with the Constitution. The courts have already shown. I mean, we've already shown that our checks and balances work.
No. Look. You're misunderstanding my statements. I didn't say Trump is going to ruin this country. I didn't say that Trump is dismantling democracy. I'm really saying he has no respect for any of those concepts, and that's what makes him dangerous.
Well, that I get.
Do I think at this point that he can get away with it? No, I think this country is ultimately stronger than that. But my point is that his behavior is so egregious. I can't say that. I mean, is this personal to a lot of the people in the press, a lot of people responsible for reporting on this stuff? Absolutely it is. And he's made it personal for them, and whether they know it or not, for every single other American. He is a direct attack on the basic principles of this country. He's dangerous, but he's ultimately not going to win. Clearly he can win the presidency, but he can't win the fucking... he can't be a king like he wants to. I mean, he's not going to be able to be the king that he wants to be.
Like, he's a loose cannon in a puppet position, and I guess I'm relying on the systems that we've had in place to keep him in check, I guess.
Right, and again, all that shit adds up. The same way the investigation into collusion with Russia, all of these pieces add up to a bigger picture. And all of these little, well, I won't even call them little. I mean, look, you're resisting against the president. That's not little. You know, the court's resisting against the travel ban, all the way down to individual citizens banding together to sue him for being blocked on Twitter. I mean, is that ultimately going to do anything? No. But these are all ways that different parts of the government and the citizens are resisting the president and calling him out for his behavior. And they will ultimately add up to somebody who is hobbled enough so that he can't accomplish the things that he wants to do. These are ways of keeping a man like Trump from becoming a tyrant, from being the king that he wants to be. And not one single one of these lawsuits or pushback against Trump is going to be the thing that destroys the boss. There's not going to be, a big explosion and the end, and everybody has a party.
Thank you for saving our princess.
Right. I mean, look, the princess is always in another castle, man. But these are going to hobble him enough to where he can't accomplish his ultimate goal. Because, I mean, look, I know this might seem hyperbolic, and I have no way of knowing what the true inner thoughts of any man are, but if he could just get rid of the whole system and just rule this nation for as long as he wants and do things his way, that, I believe, would be his ultimate goal. And
yeah, it's pretty hyperbolic. You're correct.
And I believe that, though. I truly believe that.
Well, of course, because he thinks he's got all the answers.
Right. And us going through 4 years of Trump, or even 8 years of Trump, and coming out the other side with our democracy intact, ultimately, that's still a win. We might have to undo a lot of damage, that's true, but that doesn't mean we lost. The only way we lose this is if Trump accomplishes what he wants, or we learn no lessons and install somebody with just as bad of principles as Trump, but with more intelligence to carry out their plan. I mean, big picture here, this is kind of like when people talk about climate change is going to destroy the earth. No. Climate change is going to destroy the beings on the earth. Earth is going to be fine. Earth's got way more than 22 kookaroos. It's going to be all right. It's going to keep on spinning, It could lose all of its atmosphere and keep spinning around the sun day after day, year after year. Ain't nothing going to change for the Earth.
Become Mars 2.
Until that fucking sun blows up or some foreign body large enough takes it out of the sky. And that's kind of like our democracy. Our democracy is really strong. And this change that we're experiencing in our government can be weathered if we keep our confidence in, because look, our democracy is nothing but a system that exists in our minds. This country exists, the rule of law exists because we all believe that it exists. Right? It's not some document handed down to us by a higher being. It is an invention in our minds. And this minor disruption in our democracy can be just that. It can be the death nail, too. It's possible that this is the beginning of the end, where this is where democracy stopped working. But I have just as much faith in the fact that our democracy is stronger than that as I do that Trump wants to be king of America. So I think we're going to survive this.
I don't know. You know what's trending on Google right now?
Flat Earth?
No. 73% of Democrats would give up drinking for Trump impeachment. Are you sure about your last statement?
They would not. I mean, that is the biggest lie I've ever heard.
I'd give up drinking to have President Pence. That's how
We'll survive this if we as a country haven't decided that voting for fucking celebrities and actors and musicians, not every once in a while, not the Reagan kind who made his way through the ranks,
right?
But just if this continues and it's like Oprah 2020, The Rock 2024, etc., etc.
I think The Rock's going for 2020.
Well, he got registered so he can run, but it's not him. Anybody can register anybody, apparently. Mm-hmm. There's a little fucking
no, you're right,
hole on that. But I mean, at that point, then I don't know. Then either we're going to have to fucking put up and do what we've been saying every time our guy loses, at least in my lifetime, and just go, you know what? The president's pretty much just a figurehead. He really doesn't have all that much power. Mm-hmm. We have checks and balances to keep him in line. And we're going to have to really put those to the test. Or we're just going to go, fuck it. Here's our new fucking supreme leader until someone who's a little bit more charismatic and we liked a little bit of their talk show more than the person who's in there comes along, and we'll vote them in.
Right. Well, I mean, let's look at the way that this country has changed over the years. If we go back a few decades, somebody like Trump could never get into office because it would be ridiculous. You'd have to have a certain composure to be president. At least it was once thought, right? You had to act presidential. And but if Trump was able to get into office, or somebody like Trump, a personality like Trump was able to gain the office of the presidency, 30, 40, 50 years ago, they would be much more dangerous. Because as much as this spread of information in our country has spread a lot of bullshit around, there's also a lot of very useful information out there, much more information at our fingertips that we have now as voters than we have had in decades past. So while I do see like the dangerous trend to voting based on just the cult of personality and our ideas of what it means to be presidential changing in this country, we're also gaining a lot more power as individuals with technology, with the almost unstoppable flow of information and ability to disseminate opinions and group up online through social media. I mean, these are all powerful tools, and I know it's difficult to think of them sometimes in that respect because, you know, anybody's Twitter feed looks like just a shit show of the worst of humanity at any given time.
Worst of humanity at every given time?
Oh, right. Right. It's difficult to think of social media in that respect when at any given time you open up your Twitter feed and it just looks like the worst of humanity. But that doesn't make it a less powerful tool. You know, the invention of firearms was a powerful tool for humanity. Most people do horrible shit with it, but it's a tool like any other. And the tools of our technology are becoming way more. The technology keeps coming down in price, which means that there's more. Right. Technology keeps coming down in price, which means that it's more in the hands of the quote unquote common man. Now, again, you know, what any one individual does with that tool, I mean, it's up to them. They could do something useful with it, or they could do something destructive or just pointless with it. But I don't know. That's a long way around to go to say, like,
or cat videos and porn.
Right. So our digital technology, our spread of information has deepened our love for the personality, for the celebrity, but it also brings a wealth of information for everyone. And I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that the same faith that I have in our democracy, I have in most people. And keep in mind, I
can't say that.
Yes. But the idiots that you're reading on social media are such a fucking minority.
Not even social media.
They are a minority.
Just the people I interface out in public. Maybe the airport's a bad example, but
you know, something I've noticed because just real quick, a couple weeks ago, well, about a month ago, I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna try something that I haven't done in years." And I followed every one of my friends' list on Facebook, including the family members who drive me up the wall with their bullshit nonsense. And I've noticed something. You know how we always talk about one of the problems with the left and its solidarity is that everyone has a pet issue and they end up fucking turning on each other, and it becomes,
right,
you know, the Pride Parade versus the Black Lives Matter Parade. Who's going to back down first? Something I've kind of noticed as far as the religious right and the I guess alt-right, who we could say is in power now, of that, definitely at the head of the party, is that the religious right, by watching my family and looking at the sites they post on and reading comments, is totally cannibalizing and turning on themselves like these people with their pet issues on the left. What seems to be working for the alt-right people is that they go, okay, well, fuck you people. We're just going to ignore you. We're not even going to bother trying to pander to you. You're either going to vote for us because we have an R by our name, or you're not going to vote, period, because you definitely aren't voting for no Democrats. So, I mean, yeah, they're a minority, but little groups, little minority groups, you start adding them up, and that becomes quite a large part of your base. And it seems like the powers in the Republican, the people who are in power in the Republican Party right now, they're just like, well, whatever. Who else are you going to go to? You going to vote for Hillary? No. Of course you're going to vote for Trump.
It's back to it's the electric company attitude.
Yeah, who's your second choice for provider for electricity? Oh, there is none. Oh, I guess you better shut the fuck up and pay that bill, huh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, who are you going to vote for? Jill Stein?
I mean,
Rand Paul?
I'm not saying that's what the Democratic Party needs to do, but I don't even know if they're capable of doing it, because they're the party of inclusion. And it's kind of hard to keep claiming that if you have to fucking cut dead weight, because they're so busy fighting you, holding on to your feet, that they're not even noticing they're drowning not just themselves and the other party and the other little group, but they're pulling you down as well. And I can't picture where politics is going at this point. And it just seems like
crazy.
I mean,
that is the answer.
This literally came across my mind. Is Trump patient zero in the crazy right-wingers who go meet with him, decide they're going to run for fucking office? I mean, did he meet when he met with Kid Rock and fucking Ted Nugent, who, by the way, is also, I mean, he always makes noise about I should run, but apparently he's actually pulled in his rhetoric.
Yeah, that's not an indicator for you people. Ted Nugent saying we got to calm down.
I mean, so
we haven't talked about that yet. Have I told Ted Nugent to suck my dick on this show? Because I really meant to.
Me and you talked about it pre-show one time.
That stupid son of a bitch. Why should we take him seriously at this point? Because he says so?
Why would you ever
Because he talked to Trump, and Trump's... I literally think this would happen. They met, they got their pictures taken, and then they said, Donald, how the fuck did you do all this? And he goes, it's easier than you think. There's a sucker born every minute. People are fucking dumb.
Is it the P.T. Barnum of politics?
You know, if I can be president, you guys can be senators and congressmen. You know, go forth and spread the word. Hey, it doesn't matter that you have sex tapes and you were fucking 14-year-olds that you adopted so you could just continue to fuck them legally, and et cetera, et cetera.
You know, I at least had some respect for Ted Nugent when he stuck to his guns, literally. I mean, I guess why I'm so mad at him is because, like, you can't even be just the wacko that we all know you are.
Yeah, once again, who the fuck believes that he's really fucking reeling in this shit? Because it's either one of two things then. He was putting on an act and being over the top before, which he's done most of his life, or he's bullshitting now and he's playing, you know, he's laying back in the buckwheat, hoping people buy this new, humbler, new and improved Ted Nugent. Which to me was, the minute he said that, the back of my mind,
he's posturing for a run sometime.
The little cynic spoke up exactly, Chris, and said, okay, he's trying to lay the foundation for a fucking run at something.
There is a third option in my mind, that he actually did change because he got scared shitless when he saw that liberals can take up guns too and start shooting. And he didn't want some crazy-ass liberal charging onto his land and taking him out.
Yeah. That sounds like a viable, logical third option.
I kind of like that, actually. He changed his rhetoric because he got fucking scared. Because he's a little pussy. Because when he thinks that the battle is him riding a fucking moose with a shotgun versus some liberal eating a salad with tofu in it, and then the liberal whips out a gun out of a salad and starts taking pot shots at him. He's like, "Whoa! Well, all of a sudden this is a fair fight. Well, hey! Let's talk this out.
Well, you're allowed to have guns?
Because he's a fucking bully, just like the president that he met with. Now, you know, Kid Rock. I don't know him as a bully. Actually, I know a guy who went to high school with them, and
so's everybody around here.
Right.
We're all.
I hear he wasn't that popular. He got kind of bullied in high school.
The only thing I can think of Kid Rock is I remember in like '95 waiting for a show outside of Harpo's, and him handing out flyers for, you know, his upcoming show, and him. You know, before that, he had his white boy high top fade and grit sandwiches for breakfast, and then he recorded with ICP because they were going to be the new hot fucking white rappers out of Detroit. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's always been a businessman. He's always been about, I want to make $1 million and I want to be a rock star.
Right. So he's probably sitting there going like, I'd like to run for office, and his manager was like, you remember doing Yodeling in the Valley? Yeah, I don't think that's going to fly. And then they see Trump get away with grabbing pussy, or talking about grabbing pussy, and they're like, oh, game on.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to give a shit about yodeling in the valley. That's practically feminist these days.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, so is wax that booty and balls in your mouth. Yeah. But he's sex positive. There's one way to look at it. But no, it makes sense now that like a couple months ago, I'm at work and I'm listening to Howard Stern and he's interviewing him and he's like, yeah, I stopped smoking weed. And Howard Stern was like, you stopped smoking weed? He's like, yeah, I've even cut back on the drinking. I've even cut a bunch of dead weight out of my life, and the party has pretty much come to an end, and blah blah blah. And I was like, what the fuck, did he have like a road to Damascus moment? Because I don't believe that. What health scare did he have? But now it makes sense. If he was planning on this bullshit, boom. He can't fucking advocate for. He can't be like, I'm going to advocate for smoking weed and I'm high right now. Let me go vote on some shit. I mean, that ain't going to work.
Why not?
What Dawn the Superfan posted, she's like, kind of along the same line. She's like, now I understand why he said he stopped smoking weed. And I commented, I said, at this point, I kind of want my politicians smoking weed. Maybe that would chill everybody the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, to me, if you don't smoke weed, I almost don't trust you.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if you don't smoke weed, if you are against people smoking weed, I really don't trust you. What are you so uptight about? But I mean, Donald Trump, patient zero, and hey, let's get everybody that we can possibly get who fits into the cult of personality cliche to run for office with an R by their name.
Right.
And which is really weird, because when Devil Without a Cause come out and he was asked his political opinions, Kid Rock definitely was fucking waving the libertarian flag a lot more than the fucking Republican flag. It was only when he wanted to make his crossover to country music.
Oh yeah.
That he went full on fucking, I love me some W. So I don't know. That to me, that's until he is a legit candidate besides a Twitter fucking announcement and a website that looks like it was made by someone who just finished Specs Howard in 2001. I'm not even going to worry about him. Like we're a ways off from that election. We got a lot more bullshit in our plate with the people who actually got elected last year.
Yeah.
To me, I don't think that.
And that's not saying
Kid Rock is like a big problem if he gets into office.
Well, I just want to clarify something, and I'm not saying I don't think he can be elected. What I'm saying is, I think the other person who we all said in 2015, he's never going to be president, who is now president, is more pressing than a possible Kid Rock Senate run at this moment. So that's what I mean.
Right, but this concept of Trump being patient zero, I agree with you. I agree with the concept of it, but that really isn't the bigger issue to me, because there are qualities about Trump. It's not about Trump's celebrity. That's not what this is. I know a lot of Republicans want to write it off as like, well, they just don't, they don't like him because he's different, because he's an outsider, because of whatever. No, look, he's a vile human being who doesn't believe in this country. He shouldn't be president. But using celebrity as a way to gain office, that's just going to be the new norm. It's about whether you use that as your primary drive for voting for a person, because I think a lot of people did with Trump, and not look at policy. I understand that, Kid Rock, if he does run and if he does gain office, he's only going to be a senator. Maybe he can become president one day.
Senator Rock.
But while I disagree with Kid Rock's politics, I would imagine and I know this sounds ridiculous to even say, but he'd probably make a better president than Trump would.
That's not saying much at this point.
I know it isn't, but
the cat would make a better president than Trump at this point.
I think is Rory running around somewhere? So we could put her in office and give that a try.
Right. I think he would have more compassion that a president would need to have. That the thing that Trump seems to be completely lacking. Because this is
it'll get you back in a fight in a Waffle House. First president can do that.
Whether you like Kid Rock or not, whether you agree with his politics or not, or think his music is good or not, this is somebody who I mean, he wasn't. I'm not trying to paint this like, Eminem type story about him. He grew up in the suburbs. But
his persona now is closer to where he grew up rather than his rap persona.
Well, I mean, he was a white boy that started combing his hair straight up and try and make it look like he had a high top fade and started rapping ridiculous lyrics.
But he's from the Sticks. He's from fucking Romeo.
Romeo's not really the Sticks.
It was when he grew up there. Like now it ain't.
I mean, if you really want to get down to it, at least fucking Eminem was from Warren, which borders Detroit.
Yeah,
right.
Kid Rock left. Yeah. Kid Rock left home and when it started. Now, this is true because I know people who are DJs who are older than any of us, and they're like, he did used to DJ like parties that were predominantly black back in the day when he was younger.
Okay, but you guys are nitpicking my point apart here. All I'm saying is this kid, nobody thought he was going to have a successful music career, and now he does. This is somebody who actually built himself up.
We getting out the bootstraps?
Not like Trump. Yeah, this idea that Trump built... I mean, Trump apparently has some good business sense, or else he wouldn't have been able to do any of this shit, even if it was corrupt. But he also didn't have to build it up from nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, Trump said he started with a small loan of $1 million from his father. basically,
and a name.
Bob was told by Mr. Daddy Richie that, hey, look, if you don't fucking come work for the car dealership and you go after this rap bullshit, you're on your own. You're cut off.
Right.
And he went out and he went on his own. He got cut off and he fucking made it without... I'm pretty sure his dad sucks his ass now. But, I mean, whenever he needs a new wing added to their fucking house. But, I mean,
Right, there was a point where he said, hey, Dad, if you don't stop bad-mouthing my rap career, you're cut off.
Yeah. Yeah. What, can you imagine, okay, honestly, the first family holiday after Devil Without a Cause went platinum? And he's just sitting there like, I'm sorry, Dad, you're awful quiet this holiday.
Yeah.
Don't you have something to say? I mean, just like, go ahead.
You heard of a little thing called Woodstock? Oh, look who played it.
No, I totally give him that. And that's the thing.
Yeah, I have more respect for him than I do Trump. I have zero respect for Trump.
Even people who worked with him in Twisted Brown Trucker, who I've passed and repassed and had brief conversations with, are like, one thing I'll never take away from it is, at least when I worked with him, that fucker was the first there and the last to leave, and he put the fucking work in. It was not just, I'm going to have other people do it for me. He was like, nope, I'm the one that's going to do it. And basically willed himself to superstar status.
Right, so he might have the wrong ideas on, issues of the day like health care or immigration, but at least he has values. At least I truly believe if he says that he has family values, if Trump says he has family values, I'm laughing.
Yeah, they're Trump family values.
This is his concept of family values. If
Trump's family values are like the Manson family values,
Right. If Kid Rock said that, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, right. Well, that's not what you rap about, because I understand there's a difference between art and real life.
Well, it was only 2-3 years ago that Rolling Stone did an article on him where the reporter basically stayed with him for like 2 weeks. And he goes, you'd think that for someone who has such a reputation of being hard-headed, right-wing, blah, 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 he's like, he was surrounded by people of all walks of life, all types of fucking political affiliations, and he would engage them like willingly, have no problem with it, and never be like, you're wrong, you're an idiot, get out of my fucking house. which is a lot of the problems we have in politics these days, from not just both sides, but just from a lot of people from all over the spectrum. It's, well, if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to shut you down. So, I mean, in that aspect,
right.
God damn it, I sound like I'm fucking...
Well,
I'm stomping for Kid Rock 24.
No, I know what you mean, but at least that's a starting point, you know? Any of that shit with Trump is a non-starter. There's no getting through that. I feel like, even though I disagree with Kid Rock, I share more core principles of just, you know, things that are important, your family, your country. I share a lot more of that with him than I do with Trump. That's what I'm saying ultimately is why he would make a better president, and I would much rather vote for somebody like Kid Rock. And
also, let's be honest, look, he could never say we can't legalize weed with a straight face.
Yeah.
He might not legalize it, but he go, hey, federal government, back up off it.
But, you know, I had mentioned that understanding the difference between art and real life, and that's kind of what got us into this situation with Trump, because, well, I was listening to an interview with the documentarian who did the Get Me Roger Stone documentary, which I have not seen yet. But he's one of a team of two guys that followed around Roger Stone for about 6 years. And if you don't know, Roger Stone is... Well, I mentioned him earlier in this podcast, but along with Alcoholic Breitbart guy and a few others, they were major players in actually getting Trump into office. And the people who filled him with these ideas of how to, all these ways that he talks about the press and all that shit, it all comes from Roger Stone. He was the one planting all these corrupt ideas in this empty vessel that was Trump. But he talks about, because he had for years have been trying to get Trump to run, I think all the way back to like the mid-90s, he was talking to Trump about you should run for president. And why he knew that he could accomplish winning the presidency this time is because he said, look, this is a guy who had 15 years of being on TV, and I forget the exact quote, but he was, you know, running things. He was in control. He was composed. You know, this was 15 years of a guy beaming right into people's living rooms, being presidential. He was already presidential in their minds. And that's what I mean is this. A lot of people aren't able to divide between the difference between reality and art. They watch a quote-unquote reality program that is all set up, not all scripted, but heavily edited. This is not fucking reality. And that's not what Trump is really like. He's acting presidential. But, you know, you're talking to people who can't understand that the actor who plays their favorite doctor on the soap opera isn't a fucking doctor. So some of those people that you're not going to get through to. And that's the base that Trump is played to get into office. The people who are attracted to the cult of personality and had already dropped out of previous elections because, well, they're all corrupt and what can you do? I mean, that's the swing voters that he's appealing to.
But the deeper, for me, the deeper question is why does that resonate so much with the swing voters? Why can't the progressive people get their shit together enough to get their message out more to the swing voter? I guess
well, there's two things there. I mean, in one, what you're asking is why can't people understand that the actor who plays the doctor on TV isn't a doctor in real life? That just because he played something in a show for 10, 15 years doesn't mean he is that person, but they can't separate that. I don't know. Nobody knows why people are that stupid that they can't separate that. But, you know, people do it all the time. Even intelligent people do it. They don't know how to divide the person from the art. They don't understand that how somebody like, I don't know, take your pick, a vile person. Bill Cosby is our scapegoat for all that these days. I mean, I can still say that Bill Cosby himself is a classic comedy album. He's tainted it with his actions, but he can't take away from the fact that that shit is funny. And I can say that because I can separate the two.
People
and I
still
can
seem
understand.
to dig Roman Polanski films.
Right, yes.
Woody Allen films.
Right, yeah, those are perfect examples of people who did, well, I mean, Woody Allen I think is debatable how vile it was, but I think it's creepy. Polanski, illegal, definitely, and immoral, but I've watched their films and I love a lot of them. I can separate those things. Yeah, so I don't know what my bigger point here is anymore, other than it's this inability to not understand that what's on TV isn't real, that allows us to get people like Trump into office. I mean, maybe the only answer to that is to find the right empty vessel to fill with your message. Maybe the answer isn't that we're going to swing back to more quote-unquote traditional politicians that already had the presidential look and feel and go, okay, well, that little experiment with an outsider didn't go so well. Or maybe it's Dwayne Johnson and a bunch of political operatives fill him with the right message to appeal to people that want to get their own agenda done.
I wonder what people are going to do when they find out Dwayne Johnson's a Republican.
Right. Well, I mean, again,
I don't think that's the kiss of death. I don't think that's the kiss of death it used to be. And I mean, it's not good in certain circles in Hollywood and entertainment, but I don't think it's the blackballing, like what happened to James Woods when he came out as a hardcore Republican. It was like, okay, your career is over.
Right.
No one's hiring your ass. I think because all he has to do is, because it's Trump, he could never pull this off. But someone like The Rock could easily go back to the fucking early 2000s. We're compassionate conservatives. I practice compassionate conservatism. And that's all it's going to take to get fucking people who are just kind of sitting on the fence to go, I like The Rock.
Hey, I'm brown. Come on.
Right.
I can't be that bad.
And
don't forget, you can always do that, too.
He seems like a decent guy on Ballers. He tries to help people. All right, yeah. Right. And he likes to make money. I like money. He's a compassionate
Stone Cold that one time.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, just like we were talking about with Kid Rock, that Dwayne Johnson isn't the problem. I mean, I'm interested in this subject, and so far as the subject of Donald Trump being patient zero. I mean, I guess maybe I should take that back, because if I'm going to say this, I don't exactly agree with the concept of him being patient zero. Opening the doors for the possibility of putting somebody into office who isn't a traditional politician, who comes from a different background. Maybe because to say patient zero is to say that the idea of putting people into office because, not putting it in there because, but for getting celebrities into office based a lot off of the fact that they just have a recognizable face isn't in and of itself a bad thing to me. Even with the experience that we're now having with Trump, I'm still going to say it's not ultimately bad.
Yeah, but I mean,
I think long term it could be actually a good thing that we start breaking apart what we understand as being presidential, because we've elected a lot of people who've done fucked up shit. I mean, look, Nixon was presidential. I mean,
Hey, you want to walk away?
Well, I mean, in appearance. If we're just talking about appearance, let's just talk about the surface here. You know, the type of personality, the way he carried himself. You know, he's a politician. I mean, the guy was practically born a politician, and Trump isn't. And
I think we're very far past. We need a presidential candidate who is classically presidential at this point.
Yeah,
I think
that's
we've
what I'm saying. I don't think
that's kind of an outdated way of thinking.
I'm going to stick to my silver lining. That not that I think that any of this makes this Trump bullshit worth it, but if we're going to pull anything good out of it, it's that we've blown apart the concept of who can be president, and maybe we'll start looking to people who actually just have fucking good ideas. Maybe that's what it'll come to. Instead of just like, well, he looks and sounds like president, and I'd like to have a beer with him.
This shit.
So I really don't care what he does with the brown people.
But isn't Trump kind of showing that you want someone for the job that's done the job before, though? Because it was pretty apparent by like week 2, he had no fucking clue what he was in for or
once
what
again,
it's about.
Chris, once again, it goes back to
no.
The people who voted for him don't care.
I know that's like it. I don't buy that. I guess we need somebody with experience because experience is not his issue. Every single president walks into the presidency not having been president before. And even if you want to argue that they've done some sort of public service or ran for office or a senator or even a fucking governor, that doesn't compare to what you have to deal with as a president and the amount of subjects that you need to be knowledgeable and opinionated and understanding of. It's not the fact that he didn't know. It's not the fact that he didn't have experience. It's that he is a completely non-curious person who is not open to any new ideas. He is set in his ways. I mean, the man went to France this week and made a speech that he said to France, you know, people in America might not know that France is our oldest ally. And I said, well, yeah, that statement's true for maybe some people, but I think the majority of educated people in this country know what where the Statue of Liberty came from. That's not news. That's news to Trump because that information had nothing to do with making money, building hotels, and not paying contractors.
Yeah, and the ones who don't know where the Statue of Liberty came from, they saw The Patriot, okay? Mel Gibson made sure to give him that history lesson.
So it's not about inexperience with Trump. Trump's problem isn't that he isn't a politician, and that's not why he's getting himself into this mess. He's a blowhard who I shouldn't say he doesn't listen to others. He listens to a select few group of very opinionated assholes and nobody else. And the only reason he listens to them is because they already fit into his worldview and probably kiss his ass a lot.
But I mean, are you telling me he's the first politician to surround himself with yes men? Because I'm not.
The fact that no, I am not saying that. I am saying that he's not dangerous because he's new. He's dangerous because he's not curious. He's not open to new information. That's the problem with Trump. So the idea that Trump leads to Kid Rock and Dwayne Johnson and whoever the fuck else, so what? That could be a good thing. If Trump leads to some other politician, celebrity or not, who is just as non-curious, who is just as set in his ways, who has just as little understanding of the world in general because he's only had to deal with things that fall into like those categories: money, fucking people over, and making sure everybody knows how great he is. Those are the things that are important to Trump, and that's why he's dangerous. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson isn't dangerous. Kid Rock isn't dangerous. Ted Nugent might be dangerous, but it doesn't mean that there's this like template for a new politician that is always going to be a demagogue. It's just this one. This isn't the first celebrity that we've elected to office either. It's just the first celebrity who didn't change to become more like a traditional, when Ronald Reagan started running for office, sure, a lot of people laughed at him, but he overcompensated in, being as professional as possible and to really cultivate the look and feel of a real politician. Trump didn't do that. Trump said, look, you want me to be president, and you want me to be president because I'm not going to change, and I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm not going to act presidential to you to try and get your vote. I'm the one who is going to tell it like it is.
Well, then it's a deeper question of why? Why does that resonate so much?
Well, because there's a lot of people in this country who are just as non-curious about the world as Trump is. And that's why they're nationalists and not globalists. I mean, I know we do... everybody does their fair amount of mudslinging, and Republicans are all this, or Democrats are all this. But I truly believe that globalists are smarter than nationalists, because globalists are merely looking at trends and seeing where they're going. And nationalists are making policy based on their narrow worldview and their fear and the fear of others.
But how did the pendulum swing so far this way? I mean, 2008, it's 9 years ago. We were all elected a black president. You got 2 terms. And it seemed like, oh, hey, we're finally becoming not a bunch of idiots. And then the pendulum just swung way far the other way.
It's the illusion of realness. It's the illusion of being real. It's the illusion of something genuine. And our generation was raised on this shit. We were just talking about it in the pre-show. Look at the fucking the Defiant Ones. All those rappers were struggling. You could even make a case that Tupac, who was not a thug, was not a gangster by any means, played the role so well that he got himself in a situation where he got killed for it. Street cred is all important. But it's not street cred. You're still studio gangsters. Okay? Real gangsters don't go platinum. John Gotti never picked up an American Music Award. Okay? Shut the fuck up with that shit. But that's what we've been sold on for now.
Gangsters don't talk about it either.
Exactly.
Well,
if you're a rapper, what do? You talk too goddamn much. That's the opposite of a gangster.
Right. Look, if I truly believed everything that Eminem said in his lyrics was true, I wouldn't listen to his music. I don't think I could, because it's some vile shit that, honestly, if I was friends with somebody and they just started telling me this shit about how they fucking beat their wife and put them in a trunk and how they really want to kill them, all this shit, I'd be like, you and I can't hang anymore.
Yeah, no, right.
But I don't pop the CD out when I hear it on an Eminem track, because I can divide the art from the person.
But there's a lot of people who don't want to.
Right, yeah, they want to believe that rapper is the misogynist, violent gangster that he says he is.
Well, Michael Rappaport was just talking about this earlier this week on an interview. Someone asked him about working with Robert De Niro, and he goes, I love Robert De Niro as an actor, and I love him as a person. But I think a lot of people are let down when they meet him, and they think he's kind of aloof and cold. But it's really because he's such a sweet, shy guy, and he plays completely opposite that 99% of the time. People think what they see on screen is the real Robert De Niro because he's so convincing. And Michael Rappaport wrapped it up by saying this: that's why we call it acting. And I'm like, thank you. It's
right, and it's the same thing with music.
Yes. Do you think you think Johnny Cash shot a man in Reno just to watch him die?
Right. No, yeah, exactly. And this concept also that I mean, not to get us off track on this, but the concept that some rappers are fronting, like, oh, they talk all this shit, but they don't really do it. Like, are you fucking stupid? What is music? What is rock and roll? People dressing up like things that they aren't. Like, you want to try, like, the same thing with De Niro.
Like
makes you think of like, your average rock star. You know, yes, there are some people that just have enormous personalities, and they express that on stage and off stage. I had the pleasure of meeting David Yao from the Jesus Lizard, and I can tell you he is just as much of a drunken freak maniac on stage as he is off stage.
Yeah,
but most musicians are, you know, they've got the fucking guitar between the legs and it's their fucking dick and they're wearing the tight pants and they're stroking. They don't act like that all the time. Most musicians.
I mean, if I ever
some of them get into buying their own bullshit, but most of them understand that that's just fucking stage act.
Yeah, not every musician's Shane McGowan. Okay, I mean, you know, like exactly. But I don't think. How do I put this? I think a lot of people either don't want to believe that and they want to buy into the fantasy, or they're just dumb and they really believe that these people are what they're projecting themselves in their records, on the screen, in movies. I mean, that's one of the things that NWA said from, well, not from the get-go, but pretty much after the first record and the FBI fucking sent them that letter saying, hey, assholes, you're on our radar, is they started saying, look, we're not saying we do this shit. We are basically reporters telling you what's going on in our hood. We're the voice for the people who are standing on the corners doing this shit. You know, that's all we're doing. We're just giving you live updates from Compton. So don't think we're out here killing hookers and killing cops and doing all this shit. But I mean, even with that being said, I guarantee you there's people out there that are like, oh no, man, they were stone cold gangsters, man. And it's like, no, they weren't.
Well, yeah, weren't they talking about how all those guns they always had were paintball guns?
Yes, that's what the whole one of the best parts of the Defiant Ones that I didn't know this story, and I thought most of what I'd heard in the miniseries I knew, but the whole catalyst for Fuck the Police was Dr. Dre and I think it was Eazy-E went and bought paint guns and were driving around on the highway shooting people's cars with paint guns, and the cops started chasing them. And they tried to get away from the cops, and when they finally got pulled over, the cops, you know, beat the shit out of them and threw them in jail.
I like how Dre was like, we got arrested, rightfully so.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's like, okay, you weren't out there slinging rock. You weren't out there smacking hoes. You weren't out there pimping. You weren't out there fucking in the neck deep in the game. You were shooting people's cars with paintball guns. If there's a definition of studio gangster that's more apt, I don't know it. I mean, that is, and then you get pissed off because you go to jail because you're 20 and you're stupid and you somehow think you have a right to drive around on a freeway and shoot people's private property with a paintball gun and get away with it. So you fucking fuck the police. And it's like, it's entertainment, people. It's entertainment. And maybe that's my problem. I'm not sure. Maybe that's my problem with all this. The lines are getting blurred. Just like the lines between what is legit reporting and legit news and what is fake news are getting blurred. And my problem isn't that they're getting blurred because they've always been blurred by people who don't want the truth to get out there. They love muddying the waters. My problem is people just don't care no more, and they just go, I don't care what you say, I don't care what proof you have. It's fake news. But Newsmax is the truth.
Well, it was on we talked about it, on Sporgy, Thursdays here at ChristopherMedia.net. The girl who tweeted that she thought a pitcher had 3 strikeouts, and they were logging it on the scoreboard, Aaron, and they logged strikeouts with a K in baseball, and they have for 200 plus years. She thought that they were promoting the KKK. Twitter roasted her, gave her numerous examples about how she was factually incorrect, and this bitch was having none of it. She's talking about I'm allowed to believe what I believe, and it's my feelings. Like, just right out of the SJW handbook, just hitting all of the bullet points.
I read her tweets verbatim, and one of them was, "I'm entitled to my own opinion, and this is still offensive no matter what. They need to change it."
Right. Well, yeah, so it's not only that we have this cult of personality, but we're turning that inward. So now we are the celebrity. We're the celebrity, and nobody else knows it yet. That's the problem.
You know, the older I get, the more I miss a few people who I grew up watching it, and to certain extents, to varying extents with them, admiring them. And I really wish we had Carl Sagan to go ahead and give us that speech he gave when he showed us Earth from, what was it, Voyager's perspective when it was nearing Neptune, and he said, "You see that little speck right there? That's us."
Yeah. Yep.
That's how insignificant we are in the span of the universe.
Right. We weren't even that far out into the solar system yet. The Voyager wasn't, and Earth was no bigger than any other star that you see in the sky. And so that means by the time you get to the outer reaches of the solar system, you're not even going to see it.
I mean, I miss Christopher Hitchens because I would love to hear his take on Trump right now. I mean, I couldn't imagine that man, because that man, like the more I've read about him and went back and rewatched a lot of his stuff, the more I find myself agreeing with him, because he's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat, he's just him. And he has his beliefs, and his beliefs are rooted in the facts that he can prove at the time, and if new information becomes available to prove him wrong, he adjusts his view accordingly. Case in point, he was all for waterboarding until he said, and he was so for it, he said, "Fuck it, I'll go get waterboarded to prove to you it's not torture." He lasted like 0.1 seconds. Right. And he was like, "That's torture. Fuck that. We should not be doing that."
It was like that scene in Young Frankenstein. Don't let me up, no matter what I say.
Yeah.
Let me up.
I was joking. Hey, can we crowdfund the reanimation of Carl Sagan and George Carlin? That's who I miss. That's who I want back. Let's get George back.
We'd bring back Carlin. Carlin would have a stroke or a heart attack in 5 minutes. We'd have to reanimate him again and again and again.
He'd say, Why the fuck did you bring me back when Trump was president?
We'd show him the article about GSA, and he would just stroke out. He'd be gone in 30 seconds.
You could have waited until they had sex robots.
Oh, Christ. So you guys want to get into that? Because that's a very
sex robots?
No. We've already covered that. I think on one of the podcasts that Chris wasn't here.
Well, sex robots too. We can talk about the Emmys later. Because Westworld had a whole bunch of.
No, I'm talking about the what was it? GSA. That what was the disorder they're trying to pimp? That it is. It's. Hold on. I actually have to go back.
GSA,
and look at it.
genetic sexual attraction.
Genetic sexual attraction. Yes. Yeah.
That's the biggest bullshit term that I've ever heard.
You are rationalizing sexual abuse.
Genetic sexual attraction is normal and very real, according to an article that they interviewed a lady who had went through it with her father. Basically, a child and a father had sex.
This comes from very poor framing of a story, though, because the headline was, what was it? I have to pull up the original story, because it says that, here it is. Girl describes what it was like to have sex with her dad. The sexual intensity was nothing like I'd ever felt before. It was like being loved by a parent you never had, and the partner you always wanted at once. So that's right. I mean,
I don't even have kids, and that weirds me the fuck out.
You interviewed somebody who had been sexually molested and abused for what sounds like her whole life, and you pull this crazy ass thing that comes out of the brain of an abused person and run that as your lead in the story. I mean, what you have here is, I mean, it's the story about incest.
Called Exhibit A.
It's a story of a girl who didn't have a dad growing up, so started out her life as being raised by a single mother, then had a lesbian partner who was abusive to the girl.
And this is how she described her. My mom's long-term partner was a patriarchal butch lesbian, so I already had a father figure in my immediate family.
That's how she justifies
that's the quote
it.
From her. Take it up with her if you got an issue with it.
Right, look.
This is on This is Cosmopolitan's website, everybody, by the way. This isn't like from a fringe publication.
Right. And they're trying to go for this, like, normalization angle in order to get headlines. I mean, it certainly worked. I don't read most Cosmopolitan articles, but I read this just because it was such a batshit insane story that any other respectable magazine would have reported on a girl who was abused her whole life and ended up sleeping with her own father. I mean, it doesn't even say, if you read the whole story too, she describes being a willing participant at first, and then by the end of her visit with her dad, she had to lock herself in her room to keep him from coming in and trying to get freaky with her. So how much of a willing participant is this person really?
Yeah, it was. She
was set up to be abused and then taken advantage of by her own father, and then had to come to her senses. She said they would have sex at night. She would feel like nothing's wrong. It's just the two of them. Sun comes up. She feels the guilt.
Yeah,
right.
And
she wasn't finding some new relationship.
She met him at 19 and was taken with him in a non-sexual way. And a year later is when she started feeling sexually attracted to him. And I don't even know what consummated the relationship is not the right word, but I don't know any other way.
Right.
And it started with, Jesus Christ, this is, as a parent of a daughter who's going to be 21 here soon, I can't imagine even what goes through a parent's head, even if you weren't around your kid. But it started with oral sex 4 or 5 times a day between the two.
I already shot him in the face a couple times with a shotgun in my own mind, just like hearing that.
But I mean, see, now look,
like, that's the type of primal things that could, like, it's such a repulsive thing.
Aaron, I understand, and wanting to take him out of the gene pool is a pretty, I'm not going to say it's maybe the socially acceptable way of dealing with him, but I understand it on a very primal level. Like, you do not fuck your children. Period. There's
I wouldn't get life. I wouldn't get life, I'll tell you that.
You wouldn't make it to court, is that what you're saying?
No, I'd probably serve some time.
Now, what? But here's the thing. She was, and I understand, look, he fucking is a sick fuck. But she was 19 when she met him. They knew each other for a year. She was 20. Look, emotional and physical and sexual abuse happens to, I'm not going to say the majority, but quite a few people, and they don't turn to this stuff. There's something a little bit wrong in her wiring, too, to think it's okay for my dad to go down on me and vice versa. I mean, now, if it was something that was done to her that twisted her outlook, yes, I have nothing but compassion for her, but it also, I can't put this all on him. I mean, the lion's share of it goes, I think, blame goes to him, but not all of it, because at least when it was, quote unquote, consensual between them. Now, when, like she said, she started locking herself in the room to get away from him.
But if Dad never left and raised her, do you think she would ever be sexually attracted to him?
God, I hope not. But this is, remember, there's two articles. There's 2 articles I posted. The first one is about this particular situation with this girl. The second one,
this one I find more disturbing. From
because
Salon.com,
February
17th, 2015. The headline: Genetic sexual attraction is normal and very real. A woman describes the reality of parent-child incest. The fuck is that? That's trying to normalize it right there. It literally has the word normal in it.
Well, this is, naming things is very powerful. And when we can name problems or issues or things, this is when we can conceptualize them and do things to, change behavior or whatever needs to happen. And, for example, somebody who is an alcoholic, a lot of times that first step towards change is just being able to say that word and to name that problem. And this is like talking to an alcoholic and saying, well, your problem is you just love liquor too much. It's a name that incorrectly identifies something that doesn't need to be identified. We already have a term to properly identify and therefore attack the problem of incest and abuse and rape. We have terms, we have solutions for these problems. There's nothing in genetic sexual attraction that can't already be described with the 3 words that I just used.
Exactly.
And any other identification of it is an obfuscation of the true situation and leaves people to continually be victimized. So Salon.com and Cosmo can go fucking suck a dick too, just like Ted Nugent. Because
and those dicks have to not be related to you. We are making that qualifier.
You're helping to create an environment where people can continue to be sexually abused.
Also, just
because look, I'll make this quick. But the way that you justify things like this is by turning to, well, look, there's a term for it now. Look, I don't know what's going on between me and my dad, but it must be genetic sexual attraction. And it must be normal, no matter how weird I feel about this. My weirdness is an adjustment period to what is actually a known and understandable phenomenon.
Hey, I'll bet you these same people, I said in a group, I'll say it here, I bet you these same people had a problem with Donald Trump's weird-ass comments towards Ivanka and Michael Jackson. But apparently, we're going to normalize this.
Well, if you just take out societies going, look, this is sick, this is disgusting, we have laws against this. And to me, this is the ultimate way to point out to someone it's fucking wrong on a genetic, biological level. Because if you inbreed, you're going to end up with fucked up flipper fucking children eventually down the line. Really? Okay? This is nature's way of saying stop fucking your children. This is why we laugh at, Adam and Eve, and then just boom, the whole world came from them. Really? I mean, shouldn't we have a lot more people with webbed feet and third nipples and every other fucking thing that you see when you hit certain areas south of the Mason-Dixon?
It's at the very core of evolution, because if a single-celled organism only ever saw other single-celled organisms that were exactly like it, like genetically identical, there would be no evolution. There would be no change. There could be no mutation.
Exactly.
It would keep reproducing the same DNA. It would never change to its environment. It would never adapt, and it would never become all of the beings that we see on the planet today. So, yeah, it's not even just hardwired into our DNA. It goes completely against the very concept of evolution. There can be no evolution with incest.
And on top of that, haven't we seen with the families who generation after generation of incest? And I mean, I'm not going to limit this just to the stereotypical Southern Americans in the middle of nowhere. We can just look at royal families.
Right.
I mean, it leads to
hemophiliac.
Look at dogs.
Yeah,
Look at the dog show.
I like looking at dogs.
No, but I mean, like half of those dogs that are our own
like
fucking mother, brother, sister, cousin. I mean, because quote unquote purebred.
Right.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, its nose is so short it can't even breathe right and dies at age 8 when it would normally live to 15 in the wild.
It has to like shit out of its mouth. You know.
Right. Hey, you know what? I'm tired of looking at cats' assholes. I'm going to breed one without an asshole and just pukes its shit up into the litter box.
I think people are going to be hard pressed. I mean, but it's a new crazy. We're coming out against child fucking. It's going to be hard to come out against us coming out against child fucking. But I'm sure.
See, here's the thing.
Some GSA sympathizer will.
The Cosmo article.
If this was a story about child fucking, we wouldn't be talking about it. We're coming out against the normalization of it.
Yeah, true.
The writer of the Cosmo article didn't have such a strong agenda in her writing as the writer for Salon. The writer for Salon was trying to act like this was, some part of a sexual orientation that we just have to evolve to learn and evolve and learn to accept. And it's like, no, look, I'm fucking sorry. There's a limit, all right? Fucking children who aren't yours and fucking adult children who are yours is fucked up. I don't care what you can call it a feminist agenda that she was putting forward. She can wrap it in whatever type of fucking buzzword she wants to try to make herself impervious to criticism, okay? It's the same thing when we talk about culture. Certain cultures are better than others. I'm sorry. It's a fact. Any culture that feels that they can mutilate children, their sexual organs, or kill a woman who's raped because now she's dirty and filthy and soiled. I don't give a fuck about anybody's argument who's going to say, what about their rights? Your rights don't mean, in your beliefs, in your culture doesn't give you the right to impose upon another person's fucking ability to live a normal, healthy life. And fucking kids and finding and seducing, seducing her. You're a sick fuck. I don't even know why I keep saying I'm sorry. You're a sick fuck. Bottom line, get some fucking help. I guess the only reason this guy, at least in the first story, isn't in jail is because his daughter had to go to Jamaica where he was living. Apparently, Jamaica's got some real lax laws when it comes to incest. Because if that shit was being waved around openly here, I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have been charged with some kind of crime. And possibly her too, because they both were of age of consent. This isn't a situation where it's like, these were both adults in the eyes of the law. Part of my issue when people are like, well, we have to accept everything. We can't judge. Don't judge me. Fuck you. Everybody judges everybody, all right? There's a point where we go, hey, dipshit, maybe sticking your fucking foot in a fire and you keep saying ow every time you do it, maybe you shouldn't do that anymore. Oh, you're just a hater. You're judging me. Yeah, you're stupid after the first time. How many times you need to learn the same lesson? I mean, at a certain point, you're just an idiot or you enjoy pain. And if you enjoy pain, go do it behind closed doors. We don't need to see that shit. Believe me, I don't ride in public transportation. No one needs to know what I get into behind closed doors.
All right. Yeah, a little bit of technical difficulty there. But maybe it was just the computer's way of saying, hey, maybe you guys talked enough about incest.
Yeah, we're grossing out the computer.
I mean, I know, Rich, you got cut short during that. And forgive me, I can't remember exactly where we left off, but did we leave you hanging on a point there?
To me, anyone who thinks this is falls under the umbrella of we need to be accepting of all sexual orientations and is trying to label this as a new sexual orientation, kind of like the NAMBLA folks. like those type people, fuck those type people. Right. And then there's no apology coming for that. You can go fuck yourself. I don't care. You are useless. Borrow a gun from a fucking Republican friend and suck on the business end. You're useless. I'm sorry. You fuck children.
You're on my list.
Yeah, I don't have sympathy for you whatsoever.
Or hey, didn't we learn this episode too? Or a Democrat friend?
Oh yeah.
Maybe they're hanging out at softball practice. But anyway.
Well, the other story is that Chris had sent an article on was the Seattle income tax issue.
Okay, yeah. Well, set this up for me because I don't remember if I even finished that story.
Yeah, I think Chris is probably the best one to do that since he's had personal experience with that area.
If you make over $250,000 in Seattle, it's being introduced. It may get shot down, but they are proposing if you make over $250K in Seattle that you get to pay an extra 2.25% of your money to the city, and they're blaming it on that Washington doesn't have any state income tax, which they are correct. But one thing that bugs the shit out of me, because I am in the state of Washington regularly, that they seem to keep leaving out of this stuff, is there's a 9.5% sales tax on everything you buy in Washington. The state, I always say this about the federal government, and just any government in general. They're the ultimate pimp. They're getting their money. Like, a lot of the angles I've seen on this is a little boo-hoo, like, what did the mayor of the city called it? Our current economic structure isn't sustainable this way. You've been around for a while. Your state's in decent economic shape. I don't know. To me, it's just going to discourage let's do a little kind of comparison here. Like a city like Detroit, all right? You're trying to come back and stuff, trying to get people to move into it, right? You want people to move into your urban centers. Mm-hmm. You're going to discourage that in Washington. You're in Seattle with this kind of stuff. And also, $250K in Seattle is kind of like $125K. It's like half or even more than half as far as what it goes for here.
I guess that's part of what I'm trying to get my head around. Like, what does 2.5% of your total income really mean to somebody who makes that kind of money?
Exactly. Like, as Chris, you made the comment that don't be surprised in 10 years if Seattle's just a ghetto.
Well, because no one's going to want to.
Over 2.5% or 2.25%. If they're that fucking petty, I mean, then they're just going to move to fucking Florida.
I mean, if you're on or Texas or Tennessee, but I mean, if you're on the lower end of that spectrum, I mean, you're cutting what, like $40,000 out of your income.
How are you getting $40,000 for 2.25%?
$4,000. Oh, I'm trying to do math on the fly.
No, wait a minute. 250,000 is the minimum threshold for this tax.
Yes.
This proposed tax to kick in. Right. So
yeah, that's $5,600. My bad. All right. It's not so much can they afford it; it's what it's going to discourage. I guess is what's my kind of beef. Is if you're trying to get people to live in your urban centers, they're going to go, fuck you, I'm going to live in the suburbs where I get to keep the extra 2.25%. I can build a pool. I don't know. Just
right. Well, okay, so I don't know if I can get my head around what this would.
If you're trying to get all the poor people to live together, you're going to succeed. I guess is kind of where I'm going with this.
But ultimately, if we talk about perception being reality, you have a perception of Seattle gouging people who make a lot of money. Those who that they have this idea of if you make more money, you should pay a lot more. And I think that in and of itself could just make people want to move out of the city just because they don't want to live in a city that they feel is taking unfair advantage of them. Setting aside the argument whether they are being taken advantage of or not, or whether this is just ultimately no big deal and isn't going to affect their daily lives, the principle alone to these people could be enough to make them move. And if you have your the people who are making that kind of money, definitely your higher education, they can go and probably do their same job in just about anywhere else in the world practically, regardless of whatever type of industry they're involved in. There's nothing. I don't know what would be exclusive to Seattle to make them stay there. It's not like it's Hollywood. It's not like you're an actor and it's Hollywood or New York.
If you're in tech, it kind of is. And Microsoft's up there, Amazon's out there.
Well, those are hotbeds for it, but that work goes on all over the fucking world. So, I mean, you could just say, hey, so I won't. I mean, some people ultimately, as much as they love money, they end up shooting themselves in the foot over their principles on issues. They would rather go somewhere where they're actually going to make less money than make more money and feel like somebody's got their hand in their pocket the whole time.
Well, I deal with business. I deal with the small businessmen, so to say.
I'm trying to argue your point.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying is that's the general attitude. And I've started dealing with a few people that are in California. Oh, boy. That's another conversation. They all have the sentiment of, like, good God, am I sorry I opened up in California?
All right, here's where I'm coming from on this, because I think you guys, like you said, Aaron, you're kind of trying to argue, not really argue Chris's point.
I'm trying to put myself in that position. But ultimately, I feel like if I was making that kind of money, I would not give a fuck. It'd be like an extra 2.25%, and I still live in Seattle. Yeah, fuck it. I'm pretty well off.
Let's back up for a second.
What am I going to get for it?
Let's back up for a second here. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, Aaron, you just touched on something that after Rich is done, I'm
going to go ahead because I'm going to be a minute. Go ahead.
Let's think what I'm going to get for it. The attitude out there is the government's got their hand in my pocket. They're forcing me to spend all of this extra money, and they're not offering any kind of any tax break, any kind of subsidy, any kind of aid. They're just going, you got to do it. And
they're not getting anything for it. They're just saying, hey, this is what we need to keep the status quo. It's not, we're going to tax you this, and boy, wait till you see your roads.
I just don't. I said it a bunch of times. Like all of this extra regulation and all of these extra things, the small businessman is slowly being suffocated. And you hear all this talk about, these big corporations can afford it.
Yeah.
That's who's going to be left. Wait, and you think it's shitty now, wait till that's all that's left.
Okay, so, and here's where I wanted to back up for a second, because you're basically saying the same thing I am. You're just worried more about the business people. Okay, where I'm coming from is, as of the last...
That's how we all work.
As of the last 30 years, the gap between the quote-unquote wealthy and the bottom has widened exponentially. The middle class is shrinking. These are not opinions. These are what economists say is happening. Mm-hmm. And basically, you're watching the working people, a.k.a. the small business people, have less and less of a chance to get ahead, to move upward financially. And the people who have money just keep making more and more and more and more, to where the middle class is now, hey, we've done squeezed all we can out of the people that are working poor. Middle class, it's your turn now. And why is it that's not a concern? It seems like with people who go, well, we can't have the mom and pop shop shut because then it's going to be all Walmart and Sam's Club all over the place. Well, shouldn't we worry about people being able to fucking afford to shop at a mom and pop store? Let's be honest, you go into Guitar Center, not because to non-musicians, Guitar Center is known as the evil empire. All right, that's what a lot of musicians call the Guitar Center. But they go there because, one, they have the widest selection, and two,
it's affordable.
They're the cheapest.
Yep.
Okay, so if you want to shop at a mom and pop store, you're going to have to understand. You're going to have to wait for the gear you want. If they can even get it, if they're not licensed to carry that stuff, and you got to hunt and go to different stores, and then you're going to have to pay more for it. And this is, I don't understand, like, if literally 2.25% tax on people who, and I'm not talking about the people who make $250,000. That's just that nice number to start off with. There's millionaires that live in fucking Seattle. People that aren't going to fucking feel it no matter, I mean, 2.25%, really? And you're making $10 million a year? You really going to feel that? You're going to have to tighten the purse strings?
Hey, you got companies bolting from California to Texas so they can make 10% more a year.
Isn't that the problem? How much fucking greed are we going to fucking justify?
Yeah,
and go,
but I don't know how
it's perfectly fine. It's the free market, right? It's what the market will bear.
I don't know how you even begin to fight that mentality, though. I mean, people laugh at the concept of moving your whole company over 10% profit. Meanwhile, in corporate talk, that's humongous. Like, if you can increase your profits by 10% from one year to the next, I mean, you're getting fucking promoted. Your business is fucking rocking. So it's kind of just a no-brainer. Wouldn't it be nice if they wanted to do certain things for the right reasons? Because, I don't know, they don't want to, close down a factory and put a bunch of people out in this part of the country or world even, and go to some place where they can do it for less money. And in a lot of situations where they're being paid less money because the workers are being taken advantage of. I mean, that's not how corporations work, because they're not people. Even though,
according to the laws of the U.S., there's corporate personhood.
I think we all, I think we're all guilty of it. We all get caught up in the word profits. And we all just assume that it's going to some fat guy sitting in a leather chair on the 32nd floor or whatever. But a lot of things we don't think about is, like, more profits means there are more jobs that you can maybe add in 2018. Those are additional salaries for people. Things like,
but that reeks of trickle-down theory that holds no water. I just saw the statistic today. It was 50 years ago, the top 1% held 11% of the total wealth, right? That's what made them at the top 1% when it comes to wealth in this country 50 years ago, was holding collectively 11% of the total money. Now those numbers have shifted. The top 1% now hold over 40%. So it's...
And I wonder how much of that is since about 1980.
I love the small businessman. And it's not because I even want to be that someday. I don't want to run my own business. I have worked for mostly small businesses, and in the few times where I have worked for major corporations, they've been extremely poor experiences.
Small business keeps Walmart from charging $7 for a loaf of bread.
Right. Well, I know it doesn't come down to principles for a lot of people, but it's not that hard either. I don't shop at Walmart. I've been in a Walmart, I swear to you, I've been in a Walmart once. I've made exactly one purchase from Walmart, and it was cold medication out in the middle of nowhere when I was camping, and there was nowhere else to get it. I shop at Aldi's all the time. Why do people shop at Walmart? Because they're cheap. That's why. Why do I shop at Aldi's? Because they're cheap. But there is a difference.
It just keeps the big boys.
You read about people's experiences working for Aldi.
Okay,
it sounds like a pretty good company to work for. Walmart sounds like
not really
compared to Walmart.
Hold on, Chris. You said the small business man is what keeps Walmart from charging $7 for a loaf of bread. Okay,
yeah.
Here's my question. Why does a small businessman keep them from doing that?
It's competition. It's more options for me to go spend my dollar at.
Yeah, the competition is what finds a market price for something. If you don't have competition, then you no longer have a market price. You have whatever the fuck we decided it's worth.
Okay, now give me a second. Let me flow with this, because this is something I'm trying to wrap my head around. Maybe you two can help explain it. Maybe fuck it, we can't. None of us can explain it. you guys accept that as a fact, yet I constantly hear from the same people who echo the sentiment that you guys just basically agreed on, that we need to get rid of the minimum wage, because then people will only work for what they're worth. Well, okay, wait a minute. If Walmart...
That's a statement I'm only like half on board with.
Okay, but hold on a second. Because logically, if Walmart could charge $7 for a loaf of bread, but the small business is keeping them from doing it, then what's to stop them if there's no minimum wage from saying, you're only worth $3 an hour, and guess what? Since there's no minimum wage, you ain't going to get much more than that from any place else. And we're going to do it because we're going to be able to put more money in our shareholders' pockets. What? No, but both are built on, you have to have checks and balances to keep greed in check. But one is held up as the free market, and competition breeds it, and the other is held up as regulation is stifling it. Which one's right? Because if you apply the same logic to two different situations that are both based on keeping greed in check, you're not coming to the same conclusion. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Well, because it's not about keeping greed in check. You're talking about keeping greed in check with competition versus keeping greed in check with regulation. Those are two different ways of coming at a problem. And when it comes down to regulation, you have the same market forces that work on the other side of the equation. How much an employer pays an employee works based on market value, the market value of that employee. If you want a high-quality employee, you have to pay for that high-quality employee. And if all you want is grunt labor, even that has a median wage that people are going to accept. And it should be set by the market and not by the government.
Hey, the job I had before the job I had now, when I was allowed to pay people what I wanted, I had negative retention rates, which in the food service industry is fucking unheard of. As soon as the EDA came across at only minimum wage, guess what? People started turning over every 3 months. And I guess, so Rich, too, to kind of answer what you're saying, I'd like to think, now, I guess we know, theory and reality are two different things. I'd like to think that if what Walmart's paying, if you can make more collecting checks from the government than what Walmart's paying, Walmart's going to find themselves hurting for a workforce. I'd like to think that would happen. But
they're going to limit their own expansion.
Yeah.
Well, I also found it very interesting that when minimum wage went up after I started working in the 90s, companies didn't start the bullshit they started the last time this big round of minimum wage went up, which was, we're only going to work you part-time, and we're going to have to raise prices by $1.50 to cover it. And I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. So is it really they had to do that, or is it because to keep their profit margins where they want it and to continue to grow it, they did that? Because if it's one to keep their business alive, I have no problem with that. I got a real problem with companies going, hey, we want to use you to keep our company, because the CEOs aren't going to go fucking stock the shelves. I don't give a fuck. How much of the common man, they can have all the Bruce Springsteen albums they want and dress in fucking blue jeans and Steve Jobs around the office barefoot. They ain't going to go out and stock the shelves and solder the fucking iPhones together. All right. But they, we have no problem doing that to our employees.
The cost of materials rise. I mean, that could be.
The cost of materials didn't rise in the 90s, and it didn't happen then. I mean, are we just in an age where corporations, because everything is global, it's unchecked greed, because they go, you know what, when we burn out the workforce in America, we'll just move to another fucking country who's up and coming and developing, and we'll start over there.
The auto industry already do that?
Well, I mean, how long until tech does that? I mean,
you call tech support lately for anything?
That's what I'm getting at. I mean,
you say your name is Steve.
My issue is,
we all know it's Sanjay.
I know a lot of people who tell me they understand how the economy works, but then they can't explain it. But they understand it, but they can't explain it. And to me, the economy is like going to a fucking festival of 400,000 people and you being smack dab in the middle of it. And you just have to go with the way the crowd fucking flows. You can't fight the fucking crowd, all right? The economy do what the economy's going to fucking do. The problem is how big of the fucking pie the people at the top need, and they need to keep getting more and more of it at the cost of everybody below them. Because eventually, if these corporations do just up and fucking uproot and go, fuck it, we're done with America, your taxes are too high, fuck you, we're done, we're gone. Anybody that's left, it ain't gonna be pretty. Because when people start fucking starving, people get desperate and shit gets ugly. And that's what I'm getting at. I'm not saying it's going to happen in 10 years, 15 years, but eventually you can't just keep growing profits on the back of everyone underneath you and making more money and they make less and consider yourself and go, well, this is a sustainable way to go about doing business. It's not. Eventually, you're not going to have anybody who's going to be able to afford your product. CEO salaries have gone up 300% in the last 30 years, while your average workers have gone up 16%. Please explain this discrepancy to me in a way besides that's America and that's capitalism. Because if that's the case, just like everything else in America at a certain point, it ain't working. Slavery wasn't working at a certain point. Jim Crow didn't work at a certain point. We need to adjust our thinking, or else we're going to end up in a situation that these CEOs ain't going to fucking, if they still live here, they're going to have private security forces just to get from point A to point B, because motherfuckers are going to be going, I'm killing you. I mean, is it really that far off to believe that could happen with unchecked fucking capitalism? I mean, haven't we talked about this before? At a certain point, you can't grow anymore. You have to maximize the profits you have. And instead of accepting that, they go, let's downsize everything. Let's get rid of people. Let's cut their pensions. Let's cut their fucking benefits. Let's cut their paycheck. Meanwhile, we keep collecting more at the top. It's an imbalance of distribution of wages, of money, period. That's an issue. And I mean, if a company is going to go 2.25% tax, I'm leaving. That's a symptom of a bigger fucking problem. That's a symptom of you were too fucking greedy for your own good. I mean, I don't make shit. I'll pay 2.25 cents more. Raise the fucking state tax on that. Raise it to 8 cents on the dollar. Okay, I'm fine with that. But I better see something for it. That I do agree with you guys with. If you don't see something for it, that's an issue.
Well, Rich, I don't agree with your premise here. But there's other things that I can't balance that with, and that's, I guess, first of all, you can't trust companies to do the right thing because they are not people. I know that we've gave them personhood because pretty much had to. That's the only way you can control them. But you also can't trust your government to take care of you or look out for you. The government,
because they're going to end up in the same mode.
You're just
going to turn into a set of numbers.
We've entrusted the government to protect our basic human rights. That's their main job. Protect us from invasion, protect us from harm, protect us from our basic freedoms being taken away from us. And beyond that, they don't and should not serve much of a purpose. Do I think that a lot of people in corporate America should just be more moral and understanding of this issue? Yes. I also think that there's more people who should actually fight for the things that they want in this country and not look to the government to either force a company to pay more or give up and just go on welfare because you make more money than the piddly amount that the companies want to pay. I'm not saying that I have any sort of answer to this problem either, but I am fairly certain that there's no solutions that can be made through government regulation to solve this issue.
And I feel like when I say us, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about in general as a population, as a country.
Right.
Definitely as a government and as corporations, that they tend to look at it and see it as an either-or situation. And they go, I mean, think about this. If we set out to, in flight, break the sound barrier, but we had people going, You can't break the sound barrier, so we're not even going to try. So we're going to try to work with the sound barrier. We would never have had the innovations we had in the flight. We'd have never made it into space. And it seems like people are going, well, you either have to be a communist, a socialist, or a capitalist. And that's it. And if you don't choose one of those three, then we don't know what to do. So basically, pick your poison. Well, I mean, maybe it's time to stop being fucking pharmacist and start being alchemist and start mixing shit and finding out what fucking happens.
Right.
I mean,
to understand that there's no one system that's inherently bad, and our country is primed. It's set up to be adaptable and to cherry pick all good legislation and regulation and figure out which ones actually work and which ones don't.
Exactly. And I don't care how much of a hardcore capitalist you are. If you are employing people in the United States, then yeah, you have taken advantage of socialist policies, public schooling, the roads, utilities, etc. I mean, my problem isn't that happens. My problem is that the people at the top don't even want to act like that fucking happens, and they convince people at the bottom that it doesn't happen against their better fucking judgment, against their own common sense. I mean, I'm not saying fucking give everybody, raid the fucking corporate offices and off with their heads, and we split up, amongst the people and all that shit. No, I'm not saying some Robin Hood shit, but it seems like we can't think outside of these pre-approved from people who say they understand. Once again, say they understand the economy, but really can't explain it. And then when I laugh when I hear economic specialists tell me that the economy is like a living thing that pretty much goes and does what it wants, and it has its ebbs and its flows, and the best we can do is try to predict with a certain amount of, with a set amount of certainty what it's going to do, but can always do something that we can't, predict. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going, so in other words, we're fucking around, and we don't even understand what we're fucking around with.
But wait a minute, Rich.
This is its own entity.
Yeah, but how could it be anything else? Because the economy is just a concept that we all hold collectively in our heads. What is it really? It's nothing. We're not even trading gold or valuable things anymore.
Well, that's another thing.
It's all numbers and things that represent a concept that we are all putting our faith in. So, the economy is a living and breathing thing that's constantly changing, because the economy is everybody that is active in that economy. It exists in everyone's heads that is in some little way involved in the economy. And you can predict people's behavior in general, but you can't always know what's going to happen. You can't always know what people are collectively going to do.
Christian Bale in The Big Short, you do. He saw it coming.
Well, right, but he was also, people thought he was crazy. And the whole reason he was successful with that is because so few people were willing to follow him down that road. If everybody was like, Christian Bale's right, he would have made very little money, because you can't short stock that way. But anyway, yeah.
So basically how I feel is I understand what you're saying, and I understand we're doing the best with a fucking flawed system. But why are we accepting that instead of trying to fucking, we haven't cured cancer.
As flawed people.
Okay, but we haven't cured cancer. That doesn't mean and people can live with certain types of cancer for fucking decades. Doesn't mean we stop looking for a cure. I mean, instead of having these economists who are experts tell us this is the way it is and it's the way it's always going to be, shut up, deal with it. Why don't we? If you're such a fucking brain and you're such a fucking forward-thinking human being, why don't you try to come up with a way that is not like this, to where we don't have to? Because capitalism, if the end result is no middle class, explain to me how that ends up being different than communism and socialism. And that's the big knock against those. You have the ruling class and you have the working class, and that's it. There is no middle class.
Right. Well, I think that's when people get into bad situations, is when they take a concept like what you're saying, communism, socialism, or capitalism. They take one of those as a concept and believe in that as a way of life. That's just a concept to be applied to. I mean, like, we should really be looking at every situation. Okay, government needs to spend money on all these things, defense and people's safety and whatever else. It's got this budget that it needs to spend appropriately, hopefully. And I think ideally it would be able to look at every situation individually and maybe start with just that as a framework. What actually works best in this situation? Let's play it out with just pure capitalism, socialism, and communism and extrapolate that and see if we can figure out which one of these kind of general rules to start with to apply to solve the situation of how we should be best using our resources, and not just be married to the idea that, well, this is a capitalist society and we're about making money. The dollar is king. And so when you start from that as a concept for how your society is set up, where is the room for people to fit into that when they don't even basically outrank a corporation? You give personhood to a corporation, and then that corporation has more power as its own individual than any other individual, any actual individual in the country. So, there's flawed concepts in capitalism and in socialism and in communism, and I think it's like anything else. It's the lack of diversity that kills it.
Aren't we pretty much the first nation in the history or in recorded history of this size to have used capitalism and stuck with it as long as we have? Or am I once again, I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert.
Well, I mean,
but I stayed at a
terms
Holiday
are so
Inn
mutable,
last night.
though. Like, what ultimately is capitalism? If we were just pure unchecked capitalism, we wouldn't have any regulation, but we have regulations. There's plenty of things that we regulate in business in this country. And clearly we've decided that there's some balance to that we need some regulations and we need some freedom. It's the same way that we have, we want to have ultimate freedom as individuals, but we also want to know that if somebody's ultimate freedom is killing me or raping a family member or embezzling me out of my life savings, that there's some course of action that can be done to prevent, and if you can't prevent, at least get some justice, some form of revenge for yourself out of the situation. So we balance that. We understand that there's a certain amount of freedom that we're willing to give up in order to have a sense of peace and safety. And there's a certain amount of regulation that we accept on corporations in order to feel like they're not just blatantly taking advantage of everyone. I guess when it comes to specific things like overtaxation or minimum wage, I think that's regulation going too far. Sorry, I need some water.
I guess where I'm the most confused at in the whole thing is that when I see people say less regulations are going to breed competition and it's going to be better for everybody in the long run, I go, point to me an example where that's worked and that's true. And what I keep getting is, well, according to this economic theorist, I want hardcore. I want data. I want facts. I don't want theory.
But you have the proof all around you. I mean, every giant corporation based in America,
and they're regulated. I'm talking to people that are like, we need to remove regulations
from
corporations.
But they're regular. Well, look, that's idealist
or is
thinking.
Is that anarchy?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying. I'm really because I look. I'm not trying to fucking be an asshole. I'm just trying to understand, because it seems like you guys fall between the taxation is theft, all regulation is illegal, it's infringing upon our rights.
No,
hold on, we fall between those guys and the guys that are like, look, of course we need some regulation, of course we need taxes to a certain extent, but we don't need taxes to pay for $600 toilet seats. That's fucking ridiculous. And I mean, I understand that, I get that, but I don't I'm trying to, like, what is the end result here? Is the end result the economy just keeps growing and growing and growing, and eventually it, as you said before, it trickles down? Because how long are we going to wait for it to start trickling down? The top's got their fucking paychecks. When does that trickle down?
I mean, I think regulation's needed when abuse can be proved. And
right.
I'm with you on the CEO salaries there, Rich. Like, it's...
I mean, we've covered it before. You fail up in this country after a certain point. You run one company in the ground, there's always another company willing to take a chance and hire you, usually at a bigger paycheck. So, I mean, that's... Okay, whatever. We're not going to do anything about that right now at this point in time. But, I mean, there is a way to go, whoa, wait a minute here. 300% jump in your salary, 16% jump in the worker salaries in 30 years. This is an issue. And at some point, if you guys aren't going to control yourselves and you're just going to grab all the money you can, then we have to level the playing field somehow. And if not through taxes and not through regulation, then what? Because if it goes unchecked, eventually you're going to have a ruling class and a ruled class. And that's when the guillotines roll out, guys. History's full of examples of it. And believe me, we really don't want that in this country. So that's what I'm trying to, like, if taxation and regulation is not the way to go, then what is? Because not everyone's Elon Musk. And who knows? He might be the biggest full of shit person on the planet. He might be like, I'm trying to do this for humanity, and meanwhile just cashing the bigger and bigger checks and loving it and not give a single shit about humanity.
Getting blowjobs in space.
Yeah. I mean, and on top of that, we mentioned this show before on this, and we talked about it earlier today. Billions. I don't think there's any necessary, I don't, what's his face?
Bobby Axelrod.
I don't think he's a good guy or a bad guy. I think in a way, he's amoral. He has a personal set of morals, but when it comes to business...
He's playing a game.
Exactly.
He's trying to end up with all the marbles.
And it's more about winning than it is about... or maybe even in his case, it's about not losing than it is about how much did I make on this transaction. Basically, I didn't lose. And I know people that are driven. I know people who... I have a few people I've met in my life who play professional sports, and they all have the same type of attitude. They hate losing more than they love winning. They hate to lose. And they love to win, but they really hate to lose. That's what bothers them. That's what keeps them up at night. They don't stay up at night dreaming about the championship. They stay up at night thinking about watching the other team celebrate when the clock strikes zero. That's what drives them. Is that the ultimate in humanity? Is that what we're striving for here? Because if it is, okay, then fuck it. I guess I'm not that driven. I don't want to be the top dog on other people's fucking backs and graves. It's not that important to me. I said this before, and I meant it. In the 90s, when I could walk into factories and get good paying jobs, and the minute they said that, hey, we're hiring, do you know anybody? I called every friend of mine. Let's go make this money. Let's get this shit together. And I guess I'm a communist for that. I don't know. But I just, once again, it comes down to, if it's not taxation and it's not regulation, how do we level the playing field? And if the answer is the playing field can never be level, then we have to accept that at a certain point, there's going to be a tipping point. Because if we look at profit at any cost, eventually the cost will be more than it's worth for the people who are getting that money made on their backs. And so it's going to be a cyclical situation where people at the top get greedy, and then the people at the bottom get tired of it and they take them out, and then those people rise to the top, and then 10, 15 generations down the road, it repeats itself again.
Man, that's bleak.
Well, but maybe that is the way that our economy ultimately works over the long term. You know, in the same way that capitalism seems to run on bubbles, and the people who make the real money know how to ride that bubble to the top and jump off before it bursts. And I'm almost thinking of it in the same way when you think about free market versus regulation. And you know, we've had times in this country where we've seen a balance of that, and where we've also seen great imbalances compared to the regulation that we have now. We've seen what almost no regulation can do, and we reacted to that with unions and minimum wage. And maybe that's how it works, is that there's regulation that keeps piling on until it gets to a non-sustainable point and then starts to be stripped away. And the more it gets stripped away, the more power the corporations get, the greedier they get with it. And so then we start putting in the regulations again. I guess it's not ultimately that like any regulation is bad or good. It's all about what type of regulation is appropriate for the behavior. I mean, and I'm no economist, and certainly even most economists don't even know, as we understand ultimately what's going to happen. But I don't see the situation where trying to give somebody who works at a fast food restaurant, like at the front counter or flipping burgers, enough of to try and get to the point where that person can make enough to have a family of 4 and be comfortable doesn't seem like a reasonable situation for me. It doesn't seem like a sustainable situation.
Oh, and I agree that when the whole 15, you know, we work, we sweat, put 15 on our check, and that shit came out, I was like, okay, look, that's never going to, I'm not going to say never. That's not going to happen anytime in the near future. If that's your opening offer to start a negotiation, then I understand it. Because when you're negotiating to get something, you always ask for more than you want. When you're negotiating to pay for something, you always offer less than you're willing to pay. I get that. Now, if it settles in somewhere around $10 an hour, I don't think that's outrageous. But I do say this also: if you're a dumbass who has 4 kids, a wife and 2 kids, and you're trying to make a living at McDonald's, I understand at a certain point you're locking the barn door after the horses are gone. But where does personal responsibility start to come in here? Hey, look, I can barely afford one. Let me go ahead and squeeze out another.
Oh, Rich, that's a dirty phrase nowadays. We've been covering that for 3 years. Personal responsibility or accountability? Oh, that's...
Well, yeah. On top of shaming people for having kids, the most beautiful and natural thing in the world.
Yeah, Rich.
Oh, so fucking be it, man. I never said that this subject was going to be pretty and everyone was going to be happy about it.
Well, fact, I saw it.
I feel like if I'm pissing off most people, then I'm closer to the truth. Because most people aren't comfortable with fucking the truth, because the truth is an ugly thing. Truth does not care whose feelings it hurt.
Well, yeah,
truth doesn't care about winning or losing. It's just the truth.
There was somebody on Twitter posted a reaction to an article. They posted an article and a comment on it. The article was about how population growth is affecting our environment. And their comment was, basically, if you give a shit about the environment at all, you'll stop having so many kids.
Yeah.
And
we are
my God.
We are bacteria with feet.
There are people posting, pictures of their double-digit immediate families and like, oh, tell me which one of them is destroying the environment. I'm like, you all are.
It was Joe Rogan on one of his...
selfish monster.
I'm not sure if it was stand-up or one of his podcasts just talked about, like, we are born to consume. That is all we do. Like, you look down at the, you look down, on a plane, you could see we're like a fucking virus that is spread. You can see like aerial shots, all the concrete and shit. Like when you go from, the flyover states and you start getting back into civilization. Like, we're born, we propagate, we consume everything we come across, whether it's oxygen, water, resources.
I can't agree with them on that. I think we were born to explore and grow.
Bacteria with shoes on, man, to paraphrase Bill Hicks.
And our consumption is a byproduct of that. So our brains consume 20% of the energy that we take in. They account for, I think, like 2% of our body weight, but take 20% of the energy to do what they need to do. And
that's not green. That's a pretty big carbon footprint.
Yeah, no shit. And, when our brains actually started growing, not only in their size, but in their capacity, that's when they started needing more food. And that's when we started widening our diets and started exploring more. And how we were set off on the path of evolution that has taken us to where we are now. So all of this is really born out of curiosity and exploration. And in order to achieve any of that as a species, we have to consume. It's not, the consumption is there, yes, but it's not the end result. It's the byproduct.
We love consuming.
We love consuming. And yeah, look, sure, on an individual basis, almost all of us are just consumers. It's pretty much all we do. We don't get to go to space. We don't get to, but we are all part of this society that collectively gets to do these things. If we didn't have the ability or desire to form societies, we couldn't accomplish any of these things. Sure, Elon Musk can be this guy who's like, I'm going to take all my money and go to space, and all my friends are coming with him. But if
I got to send him a friend request. Shit.
But if Elon Musk lived in a if Elon Musk lived in a world where man never came together to build societies, it wouldn't matter how much money he was able to collect as an individual. There's no fucking way he's getting any kind of cooperation to get into space or to build an electric car, to do any of that shit, unless he himself builds a society. He gets many people to all believe in the same thing and all work to the same goal. And
exploration for exploration's sake is something that, even in history, has very rarely been done. And if you
but I use that as that's a metaphor, though.
But I mean,
you can't pick that apart.
Hold on, because if you even look at the space race, we were throwing money at it hand over fist, and we were not getting immediate benefits back from it.
That's why we had to fake it.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, Stanley Kubrick in the Astrodome. Yeah.
On top of the fact that if we actually did get to the moon, then we'd see that the Earth was flat.
Didn't Buzz Aldrin punch somebody?
He looked like he wanted to.
He did. He was in a documentary the guy made, and it was like the Michael Moore documentary, Roger and Me. And he finally got to ask him a question. He asked him how could he live with himself knowing that he faked or was in on such a conspiracy. And Buzz Aldrin's old decrepit ass turned around and just knocked him the fuck out.
Yeah.
Which, I don't condone.
Good for him.
Dude. Yeah, you forget these guys. These guys aren't pussy scientists like fucking astronauts these days. These were military men.
Yeah, these were military pilots.
These guys saw some shit in their day, okay? They were like, fighting is just, that's second nature to me. I'll knock you the fuck out. Worry about the consequences later. But no, I know you're just using it as just, a metaphor or a jumping off point or whatever, but it's valid in the sense that even like Columbus looking for the New World was not, that was pushed by, we're going to gain something from this. And I understand we have to have a return on stuff, but at a certain point, it's like, does there need to be a price tag on everything? Does every single thing in our society, from the top to the bottom, have to pump money into the economy for it to be worth a shit?
Yeah. Well, you know, Rich, okay, so you posted that story that was showing the graph about when to expect your job to be taken over by robots, basically.
Yeah.
In number of years from now, you know, and it lists out a number of different professions and general areas of where, you know, even saying that by, you know, this point, 150 years from now, all manual labor and industry is going to be done by artificial intelligence. And as you get closer to that point, I think you're going to find out the answers to your questions, because that's ultimately, you know, I don't think that the living wage, is that what you call it? Maybe I'm using the wrong term. We were talking about this before. The concept that...
Oh, universal basic income.
Yes, thank you. That's what... Yeah, the universal basic income. I mean, we may experience that, but even if we do, I think that's going to be a relatively short period. At some point... Oh, we will have...
We're going to have to please the robot overlords at some point.
Our own technology will disrupt our capitalist economy to such a degree that we will stop believing, as individuals, gradually over time, we will stop believing in the concept of the economy in general. And I don't know exactly what that would look like, but, you know, there was an example of it in the recent science fiction series that I read, The Three Body Problem, which shoots way into the future, and you do see a society that, you know, is almost completely automated, and most people don't really have to do anything if they don't want to, and it's almost some sort of utopia that they live in, and they've almost outlived the concept of the economy. The economy doesn't really matter. They pretty much have everything that they would need. And this book doesn't go like deep into the mechanics of how a society like that would look. It's just really painting a broad picture, and that's not even the story. That it was just a facet of the larger story that it was telling. But yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that we will find out the limitations of the concept of having an economy when it outlives its usefulness, because ultimately that is where it's going.
To me, it just seems like businesses and corporations have a vested interest, aka their pocketbook and their bank accounts, to keep us producing, even if we no longer need to, because everything is automated. They're going to find something to say, you need to do this and it's not like we were talking about universal basic income where people would go, well, fuck it, if I don't have to work, then I'm just going to sit at home and play video games all day. It's going to be like, they don't care about fucking whether we waste our lives away. It's going to be, wait a minute, we need to keep our profits rolling in, so we need to convince people because that's their job. That's their job, is to keep the profits coming in and growing constantly. And if they look on the horizon and they see a future that they're no longer able to do so because it's no longer needed, and we just abandon the idea as a species, you don't think they're going to try to buck as hard as they can to keep that from happening? They have a lot invested in that idea. And that's where, like, I mean, if you look at the graph that I sent you guys, I mean, they're saying jobs like truck drivers in the next, 12, 13 years, they won't need the truck driver that we know truck drivers today.
Yeah,
they might need someone to sit in the cab like a pilot sits in the the cabin and make sure that if something goes to shit.
They'll need to do that for a transitionary period where people adjust to the concept. But it's
your job will turn into the person who's monitoring the truck off-site.
Right.
That's what that'll turn into. You're running the truck drone.
You'll basically be an air traffic controller in charge of X amount of trucks.
I mean, I guess where my mistrust of corporations comes in is that we say the more money they make, the more jobs they can create. Well, as we're fast approaching, at least in the developed world, the reality of we're not going to need the classic jobs that we've known in the industrial age, and the tech jobs are going to be more and more specialized and more idiosyncratic, and they're not going to need 30,000 people to watch over 30,000 trucks. Maybe it'll be one person watching over 100 trucks. And that's still, there's going to be a lot more people out of work than there are. So if their job is to be job creators, what are they going to create at it?
I don't know.
Where's that coming from? I mean, that's...
Yeah. Couple that with the fact that when you're not working, you're at home fucking all day, so then you're having like 11 kids.
Oh, Jesus. I think... I know this is...
That just throws your imbalance out of whack even more.
Well, here comes the socialist part out in me. This is where we got into we need public college. We're gonna have we're gonna need a workforce that's gonna need a lot of education coming up here in probably the next 50 years.
But we're gonna need less of that workforce, though.
Stop spending money on tanks and spend it on school. Like, because I do think like where the government should step in is you need to take care of people who can't take care of themselves, and you need to set your people up for success. All right, we talked about this a month ago. Showing up to an office and combing through the internet for an hour so you can collect your unemployment check ain't doing anybody any good. Wow, I just totally made myself not sound very educated there, but it's not. Like, you Aaron, talked. What'd you get from having to go into Michigan Works and surf the internet for an hour every week?
Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. So you got to set your people up. You want your society to be successful. It's back to just a principle in business. You want anything to be successful, you got to set the people up for success.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what keeps me on
that's what keeps me on the left side of things to people who are down with the right wing things I say.
Just to kind of wrap up my thoughts on it, I think that the answer is going to have to come from we're going to have to start looking towards getting. I know you threw it out there and you didn't mean for it to be a major theme in it, but exploration of some sort, whether it be in space, here on Earth, going deeper into the ocean, whether it be in the arts. We're going to have to
find that new frontier that's going to drive our economy if we want to keep it going and balanced in a certain way.
And we're going to have to get used to the fact that some people we send out to go explore parts of space or the ocean might not come back. It might go back to the days of, I mean, I'm not saying manifest destiny, but a whole lot of people died heading to California. Not everyone is going to survive this.
What did the teacher in Dazed and Confused say? 50 of you are going in. 25 of you ain't coming back.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, that's a great theme for this week's show. Hey, you're not all going to make it.
Yeah. And what was it? You can't control who sends you an email? Whatever the fuck.
What?
I got an email. I'm trying to bring it all back to the beginning.
No, I didn't hear what you said, though.
Well, Donald Trump said, you can't control who sends you an email.
Oh, did he say that?
The Trump Jr. He said it on Fox News or something like that.
I missed that one.
Yeah.
You can't control who's... No, you can't, but...
He's like, I got an email. You can't control who sends you an email.
Sure, I can't...
You're like dick pics. They just show up.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I can't control who sends me a Nigerian prince scam email. But I didn't respond to it.
Well, let's say you went down the same path Stephen Colbert went down. He's like, this guy's apartment must be full of Nigerian princes and boner pills.
and hot older women who live near him and want to fuck him.
Yeah.
Right, because what reasonable person doesn't think that? The only people who think that statement makes sense are the ones who don't use email.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, and the family member will remain nameless, but I actually had a family member call me about 2007 and said, I just got an email, and they read it to me, and it was a variation on the whole Nigerian prince thing. Mm-hmm. And I just sat there biting the inside of my cheek, waiting for them to finish. And when they finished, they said, so do you think that's legit? And they meant it. And I said, no, it's not. Delete that. And push yourself away from the computer for a while. Go watch some TV or something. Go for a walk.
There's actually an older term for that. It's called the Spanish prisoner, and it's a con.
Exactly. Just because you throw new coat paint on it doesn't mean it's not the same old con.
Or remember when you get did you guys ever get these in your kid when you get the chain letter where you're supposed to send $1?
Oh, yeah.
To like 10 people?
Yeah.
I got one of those from one of my cousins. My mom was like, throw that shit out.
But check and see if you send $1 first.
Yeah, I know, right? But, yeah. Wow, everybody. I had this thought again during the show. Remember when we used to talk about like video games, movies, fun shit?
Yeah, but we didn't just harp on Trump for 3 hours. I mean,
only like an hour and a half.
Well, no, but you know what? It wasn't just making fun of Trump for an hour.
It's true.
I think what we did really well today, if I can toot our own horn, is that, or maybe even did it a little bit too much of it, was we abstracted everything. I mean, I guess it's just the way I like to think about it, is you pull back far enough, you'll see somewhat of a picture.
Well, I'll just say this.
Use the pull-out method this week.
This is a teaser for maybe a show in about 3 weeks. I'm kind of making a case in my mind at this point to bring up to you guys how Sony is basically shooting themselves in the foot as a movie studio. And on August 8th, after that weekend, I'll know if I made a solid case or not, and I'll bring it up to you guys. But
wait a minute, what's coming out in August?
August 8th. That's the day Jerry Garcia died. That's all I know.
Oh well, it's that Dark Tower movie that Sony's been banking on.
Oh,
because so far, if you look at the last 2 summers,
made a lot of money off that Spider-Man film.
And if you look at the last 2 summers, that's the only film that it's a tentpole property they've made money off of.
Right.
And
they don't
if they fucked up Spider-Man
on their own.
Yeah, that was with the help of Marvel. If they fucked up Spider-Man, then I would have brought it up this week. But I'll save it. I just want to wait for their last big summer movie to come out to see if because there's been some statements from people at the top of Sony that I'm like, you're putting ideals in front of profit. And I can't believe that people are letting you get away with that. So it's just considered a teaser.
That's the entertainment industry. But yeah, you're right. Teaser. So yeah, we will just thank everybody who's been listening on our way to another record month. So I don't know how the hell we've caught on. Well, dude, we toot again. It's a good podcast. I think so. So thanks to everybody who's been listening, passing it around. Join or an STD, whatever. However you're gonna do it. Either way, you're having fun, right? We are on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever the fuck you call it now. Stitcher, Google Play. You just go to, like Rich does, you go to ChristopherMedia.net every week. You just listen to it there. All right, we got the unregimented page up there. You just listen to it. We got a streaming station too. So maybe, and I've noticed with the streaming, it's mostly desktop. So maybe it's people at work just know, and they can, hit up the station and just listen to hours of Christopher Media podcasts all in a row. So thank you for that. You can email the show unregimented at ChristopherMedia.net, on Twitter at unregimentedpod. And thanks for listening. We will see you next week.
See ya.
Later, guys.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook by searching for Christopher Media. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
You might not think that a few simple words could make you crave McDonald's breakfast sandwiches. But if you listen closely to the sound of me saying McGriddles, McMuffin, you might be wrong. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
To show you how easy it is to file a claim with Geico, we hired a soap opera star.
Gracious me, my car has storm damage and I've had to file a claim. Could it possibly get worse? Will my claims team leave me for someone else? Someone less intense?
No. Actually, when you file a claim with Geico, you get your own dedicated claims team who promises to stay with you throughout the process.
Oh, I've never known such loyalty. I can't wait for the second season.
Geico. Great service without all the drama.